Evening. Apparently, I am now live, so there's no one in at the minute. But at least my camera's facing the right way today, as it wasn't on Wednesday. So let's just wait until everybody gets notifications that we're live. Tonight is obviously, excuse me, Peachy of Painting Phase and formerly GW fame, and Casey has joined. So I'm going to try and invite Casey now. Go live with Benj. You sent me an invite as well, so I'll accept them and see what happens. Accept. Go live. You getting those invitations? Are you getting anything through? Yes. There's done. Hi, mate. You okay?
I'm all right, aye. Yeah?
Yeah, not too bad. Freezing today. Freezing.
Right, Many Penny, I hope you're well, mate. Hope you're having a good Sunday.
Right, just waiting for Casey's here. I've accepted his invite. Says he's invited, but he's not here yet.
I get back my work done in the old tank today.
Oh, it's blue. I wasn't expecting it to be blue. I've accepted your invite twice, Casey. It's just not. It says you're invited. It says you're not able to join. There you go. I've sent you an invite again. Just waiting on the Londoner, as usual. Oh, is he on? Because I can't see him.
Yeah, I'm on. It's doing I'm blacked out thing.
He's on like Donkey Kong.
He's on like Donkey Kong. Right, we're waiting on Peachy now. How have you been, Casey?
Brand, you sound like shit though. You all right?
I'm still getting over that COVID from 2 weeks ago. Still lingering.
The old long COVID. You want to watch that shit?
Video
Yeah, it's just lingering.
for me to use. Have you getting good? Have your video feed decent, or is it pretty poor?
Say again.
I only see myself.
No, I can see both using it's heavily. It's like somebody trying watching 1990s.
And then what happened was he took me back behind the bins.
Looks okay from my end, but I can't Casey at all. Cannot see Casey at all.
No, I see him. I can see both these.
Yeah,
I'm
I say Don said he can see both of us, so that's fine.
Right, we're just waiting on. We're just waiting on
The guest,
Peachy then.
the main man himself.
Has he been fashionably late?
I mean, if I was semi-famous and 3 randoms asked me on and I said, yeah, that'd be fashionably late. Fuck you guys.
You're fashionably late anyway, and you're not even famous, so, you know.
I was here before Dunk today, I'll have you know.
No, you weren't.
Look back, and it said, for me, I joined before you, sir. It just let you in the chat, in the thing before me.
Yeah, he did. He did actually join just before you.
What Great Studios
There we go.
trying to get a wee preview to see how good to present to people before you build it yourself.
Right, Peachy, I've sent you an invite. Let's see if that works. Because, you know, hey, it does work. Hey.
How you doing, man?
How are you?
How do you?
Good evening.
How's my audio? How's my footage? Is it all right?
Yeah.
The audio is fine. The footage for me is a bit. Wait, it's Instagram, so I've given up now.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
Yeah, the footage is brutal for me, but that's all good. It's just 3 beards and picture.
Yeah. Yeah, but
welcome to the Inquisition, Peachy. Thanks very much for taking your time out on this Sunday evening to join myself, Penge, and Simon.
Hey.
Have a Sunday evening. Thanks very much for coming on. Just want to give a shout out to Boltstorm Wargaming as well, our stream sponsors.
Nice.
Both Team Boltstorm.
Oh, look at
you. So just
shirts.
we've got to plug them off. Simon won't speak to us for a few days, so we don't want that.
We've got our names on as well, in case we forget what our names are. Alzheimer's proof days, huh?
It's easier to remember us. There's a Scottish fella, a Southern fella, and Simon.
Yeah. Got it.
So, did you do any pegging today? Peachy, any pegging done with the wife this weekend?
No, not really. I mean, we're at a Remembrance Sunday event today. I thought I'll leave the pegging for today. I think it'll be a bit disrespectful. I'll maybe peg them on Monday instead. But no pegging of late. I need to get some more. We've run out, so I need to buy some more pegs. Some people still don't know why that's a thing, which makes me laugh. They're like, you do know that's a thing people do to each other. It's a bit naughty. I was like, yes, I now know that. Watch this short; it'll explain it all. So yeah, fun.
Well, you said there that you were at a remembrance ceremony today, and I think watching one of your early painting phase streams, you said that your dad was in the military. So did you move about a fair bit when you were younger?
Yeah. I was certainly an army brat. It was mostly West Germany that I experienced. My brothers experienced a bit of the UK as well. But yeah, mostly West Germany for me. So it was Munster, Cologne, Hona, and Wolfenbüttel was the last place I was at. And then he had to come back because his kids were getting older and they needed to go to secondary school, and they didn't really do it there. So other than sending them on our own to our grandparents, my mum and dad didn't want to do that. They didn't want to leave like the kids on their own. You know, they wanted the family to be together. So that's why he left the army, and then we all moved back to the UK. So because we're all grown.
And what was it your dad was in?
He was in the 9th, 12th Royal Lancers, so he was a cavalryman, and that's, I think they're all amalgamated now as the Queen's Lancers, I think maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he used to drive armoured cars and tanks and stuff like that. So sounds fun. I mean, when you wake up in the morning and you see like just a row of like chieftain tanks and like Scorpions, I think they were. Yeah. So it was great as a kid.
Yeah, but I spent some time in the military myself, and that's where I was spent some time with the Queen's Royal Lancers. So I think that 9th, 12th would ended up being but in Bosnia, and they took us out in the scimitars and the scorpions. And within about 20 minutes, I was just spewing everywhere, and they were finding it absolutely hilarious. And I did not find it one bit. Being an infantry boy, no, I'd rather just walk. Yeah. Thanks, no thanks for me, not at all. So, did you get into like? So one of the first questions we asked everybody when we're doing the Inquisition is, what age were you when you first started getting into Warhammer, and what was the first models that you painted?
So Warhammer would be like 88, 89, because my brother had gone to the local Games Workshop in Derby and came back because he was really into like D&D and stuff with his mates and stuff. And they just looked cool. And I was already into like models and toy soldiers up to that point anyway. But yeah, that was the first sort of like thing that hooked me, was seeing like elves and dwarves. And then we got Hero Quest later on, probably that year or a couple of years later. I forget when it was released now. It was so long ago. But yeah, so I would have been, I think that's how most people got in, was Hero Quest. It's certainly of my generation anyway. So yeah, that was my first foray into Games Workshop and Warhammer. But before that, it was a French Napoleonic cavalry guy that my dad gave me. It was a lead. Give it a 4-year-old a lead figure, eh? Probably explains that.
Only if you were sucking on it, I suppose, like putting it in your mouth and just going at it.
So yeah, I painted it really badly. I probably still got it somewhere in the attic, but yeah, I'll say like late 80s was when I kind of got into it. I couldn't really, and Space Crusade as well. Yeah, I've seen someone saying Space Crusade was theirs. Yeah, it was a bit of both. I think they were quite close to each other, weren't they? Space Crusade and Hero Quest.
Do you remember Battle Masters?
Yes.
Which was a big...
Yeah. Always wanted that one because they had it in Argos catalogue, and I wanted it for Christmas, and it had gone out of stock. So, and then after that, you weren't able to get it again. So I was gutted, not able to get Battle Masters. Looked great.
Yeah. I had Battle Masters and used to bully my wee sister into playing
You're
it with
the
me.
only person I know that's had Battle Masters, Dunk. I think there was one in stock and you bought it.
And you remind us of it every week as well, Dunk. You're constantly like, I had Battle Masters stuff.
You remember Battle Masters? I played Battle Masters when I were away.
That was the worst dwarf accent I've ever heard in my life, by the way.
It sounded like Dwalin, almost like Dwalin. It was good.
Grimley's rolling in his Lord of the Rings grave right now after that impression, to be honest with you.
He's not dead, is he? He did. Tommy Gimley's dead. That's like Tommy's doing Father Christmas.
Hey.
So, when did you then transgress into like Warhammer or old world Warhammer stuff?
So yeah, we had all sorts of random bits, and my brother had second edition, and I mean the rules were mad. So for like someone that's like primary school age, just like, yeah, sure, let's just roll some dice and see what happens. Didn't get it. Carried on just playing and just painting the figures because I enjoyed it. Lots of Hero Quest. And then I think when we got, was it 5th edition with the Bretonians and the Lizard Men on the front?
Yeah.
Because we just missed the previous one, which was the High Elves and Goblins. And the guy in the shop was like, hold on, because this new one's coming out. So we waited, and then we got that. So that was good. And then, that was my sort of entry into Warhammer, which was great. And then from then, 40k kind of kicked in because lasers and tanks. Like them.
100%.
Say again.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like,
Yeah, 100%,
I liked it. 100. I loved. I love Space Crusade growing up. Like, I used to play that like religiously all the time. I think I've still got bits and pieces kicking about my house somewhere from back in the day as well. Like, really, really badly painted with this. Like, it's just like a whole pot of paint from there.
I mean, my first painted figure for like Warhammer would have been probably the Mummy from Hero Quest. And oh my god, fried egg eyes. I mean, one eye was painted like really large and one eye was really tiny. So yeah,
Katie still paints eyes like that, so you know.
Or with blue dots in them as well, trying to get blue eyes.
Don't paint eyes for that very reason.
Same.
Yeah. Same.
Best way. No, you can't make them look good. Well, you can. Some people can. I can't.
So, like, were your brothers into Warhammer as well, or was it just kind of you that kind of kicked on?
No, I think there was a golden age where all of us were kind of into it. So my dad had an army, I had an army, my brothers had an army. My sister kind of liked it, so she ended up playing some Necromunda stuff when we got into that. But there was like a golden era where we all did it, and it was great. And I definitely think Warhammer and Necromunda were the fondest memories of that time. So that was probably like 93, 94, 95, 96, that kind of era. So 4 years of just like hobbying with your brothers and your dad. Awesome. It was great. But then they went off and did their own thing, and I weirdly went off to become like a staff member at a local shop. Thought my brother would do it because he was one that got me into it. So it's mad.
And were you ever into like the role playing fighting fantasy books back in the late 80s, early 90s?
We tried. It's like herding cats. My brother was really into D&D, so he wanted us to all do it, and I didn't quite get it. I wanted to be a dwarf, and then we usually ended up fighting the bar staff in the local tavern, and it's like, just because we're all like teenagers, primary school, just hitting secondary school, so we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't care. So yeah, we didn't really do much role play after that because he found it quite stressful. Yeah, I've done it with friends since, but yeah, we're brothers now. He just couldn't control us. It was terrible.
You also said as well that you went to art school as well? And
yeah. So weirdly, I found that I guess over the years I've now discovered, being at the time at school, you wouldn't have known this because it was the 80s, but not great at spelling, not great at reading words. Sometimes they're all fuzzy, and you find out, oh, okay. So when you get to university, they say you're dyslexic. I'm like, what's that? How do you spell that? I don't know how to spell that. So that's when I discovered, like, that's why I liked art, because that was something I can get my teeth into. Whereas any kind of studies at school I found really hard. Like maths was really hard. I couldn't concentrate. Whereas art, I always just chilled out, really enjoyed it, really super focused on it. And then every night I was drawing as well as painting as well. So sometimes I'd be painting, then a bit of drawing after. And then I've kind of built up those skills over years and years and years, and then went to art college, then went to university. And then kind of stopped it when I joined workshop because I was too busy painting armies. So I need to re-hone those skills because, you use it or you lose it, really. And
Yeah, 100%. Aye.
but yeah, that was good. I used to like drawing lots of army pictures. Germans fighting British and Russians fighting Americans, and then suddenly like you start doing sci-fi stuff. Oh, aliens! I like that. Let's do some like humans fighting. Oh, is that really an alien? Don't know. Look, it works for me. I'll draw it. It looks nothing like a xenomorph, but hey. But yeah, it's good.
So, I'm going to jump in with a few questions now, if that's all right. I mean, of course it's all right. You've come to us, but
don't get a choice.
No. So, speaking of, like you were saying there, just school, and I know obviously you've talked about your love for Napoleonics before. I studied military history at A level, and I'll tell you what, I've done absolutely bugger all with it. But what is it? I know obviously you said that your first minis were the Napoleonics. Is it just that love of the first lead minis that you were given that's kept you in it?
I think so. I think it's that at the time, my dad had like some military modelling magazines. He had some War Games Illustrated. I was surprised how long War Games Illustrated had been going, actually, because they were like 87, a long time. And I think it's the pretty uniforms. I think that's what drew me in. And at the time, I'd seen the movie Waterloo. So I think I first watched that in Germany, and then later on would get it on VHS and then watch it to death in the UK. And then you get the hits of like Sharp in the 90s. So as I started getting into like other things, I was like, oh no, I remember, I like this. This is cool, because like Sharp reminded me. And I suppose it's become that thing that I've just always had in the background, and I've never really, other than Airfix figures and Revel and all the other Italieri kind of like little plastic figures, I never had like a full army. It was just painting random things. And then it wasn't until the Perrys started releasing theirs that me and Duncan were both like, oh, we should totally like make a game where it's like Sharp fighting the French, and we used Lord of the Rings rules because they were such easy rules to get into, and we knew them at the time off by heart. So yeah, we kind of jumped in, making our own like little rule set of that. And then I had a box of British, he had a box of French. I made Sharp using a rifleman and cutting his head off and giving him Boromir's head, because that was the easiest way of doing it at the time. Gave him a bit of a shave, obviously, because he had his goatee. And then, yeah, ever since then, because Victrix were coming on the scene at the time, because Perry's had done a set, and there was a company called Victrix, and they do lots of Napoleonics now, and many other things as well, like Ancients. And they had these two box sets of British. There was sort of the Peninsular War, and then there was Waterloo, and there was two boxes for each. One was Centre Company and one was Flank Company. I was like, what the hell does this all mean? So I didn't really know what they meant. So I got an Osprey book, and this is the thing I always say to people, is like, just because I'm fond of Napoleonics, I'm only a couple of books ahead of you. I've only learned it from reading, and because I'm into it, it's that hyper focus stuff. Normally words I struggle with, but because I'm so into it, I kind of weirdly make the effort to try and understand it. And there's lots of pretty pictures as well. And in Osprey books, you get like a couple of like sections in the middle. So I just look at those and go, oh, that makes sense. And then logic starts to kick in. So then you realize that, oh, they have so many companies in a regiment, and then you get ones on the flank. That's what a flank company's for. Blew my mind, because it was like, it was the same amount of figures in each box. So you get like 52 flank company and 52 center company. I always thought that was a weird sort of box size for the flank companies, but Victrix, that's how they did it. That's what they wanted to do. But yeah, so that then I started buying them and getting used to that, and then Perry started adding more, and then there was the metal figures. And as the time's gone on, there's just like so many more companies that just keep adding plastic figures. And I have to go with plastic, because a few people have said in the past, like, why don't you just get the metal ones? So I was like, I could have done, but as a motorcyclist, as I've discovered, when I've got armies on my case strapped across my arm on a motorcycle, it cuts circulation off, so my arm goes numb, so I can drive. Because there's been a few times where I've had to pull over, take my bag off, and let blood flow back into my arm again. It's awful.
And just thinking on the historical lines, again, thinking of that whole period, I mean, obviously everything from like the early 1800s up to the 1900s, like you say, all the uniforms, everything, it was just colour.
Yeah.
The amount of colours everywhere. Does anything particularly stand out to you about sort of how it's all sort of moved on from there? Like, I know obviously everything's just drab and khaki now, but looking at what it was, to what it is now is, and just thinking about the wargaming side particularly, if it comes to historicals, are you always going to stick to like pre-World War One stuff, or would you venture further on?
I have dabbled in World War One and World War Two. I've done like some stuff after that as well. So I did like a bunch of like modern stuff ages ago. I always find moderns a bit sort of like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable doing it. I think there's like a time period. I think as you get older, you know, it gets a bit further back. But I did some Vietnam stuff with Dave Andrews, but that's so disconnected from me, it doesn't bother me. Whereas I wouldn't do Falklands onwards. It just feels weird.
Yeah.
Because that was like the era my dad was in the forces and stuff. But then you get like, I kind of find a way to scratch that itch when I start doing like G.I. Joe or make up my own James Bond baddies and find modern warfare soldiers and make SAS versus guys in orange jumpsuits with builders helmets. It feels less sort of real. So I kind of tick the box that way. But I definitely think World War II, I obviously always enjoyed the movies as a kid growing up, and then, you know, you get the resurgence after Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers. So I've always wanted to get back into it just to do that. But I think I'm a Brit at heart and a paratrooper, so I'd always want to do like Operation Market Garden, that kind of stuff. I just love the smocks and the camo, and obviously the Red Devil beret and stuff. It's just cool. Whereas I know a lot of folks that are really into like, you know, doing US infantry or like Rangers. But yeah, I do think the splash of colour helps. And I think when I moved to doing Warhammer armies, I did Dwarfs and I did Empire, because Empire is just like an explosion of colour. But even then, I suppose, like Imperial Guard, I went down the routes of Ventrilian Nobles and Mordigans and, you know, big spangly jackets and big hats or feathers and stuff. So yeah, I think it's colour. I like colour. You're right. That helps.
I can just jump in. Daz made an interesting comment. Motorbike, don't you mean spaceship? So
I mean, it does feel like a spaceship sometimes. It looks like one, because it's a Kawasaki Versus. I always wanted a Ninja, and over the years of like getting lots of motorcycles, I kind of had like a low rider, like a classic style motorcycle, and it was fine. But then I wanted to go more cool and go for a street bike, so I got a Suzuki and it looked cool. And you know, when you're at uni and you're driving a sports bike, you feel like the bee's knees. But you have to be safe, and it's not great for winter. I ride all year round, not ideal for winter. And it wasn't until that eventually died that I got a new bike. And I was like, I ride all year round. And the guy was like, you want a Tourer? I was like, I like the look of them. He's like, you want this one because it looks like this. And I know you want a Ninja, but it's got a Ninja engine and you can use it all year round. And you just get like a hose pipe to it and it'll be fine. I was like, all right then. And it's been the best motorcycle I've ever had, because it just saves me so much in like ice. And sometimes there's been a few times when it started snowing at work and I've had to get home and I've just hit a blizzard and I'm like, ah. But I managed to get in the end.
A couple of my friends have got Ducatis and they think they come out about 4 times a year. They don't ride them at all. They stay in the garage queens.
Sometimes I feel like I need to get one of those, like a sort of like a fair weather rider bike, and then just have the bike that just does all the leg work through the rest of the seasons. But it is filthy.
The weather has to be optimal, dryness, warm, before they'll even attempt to go out on those bikes.
And you're right, there's only 4 times a year that happens. So
yeah, we live in the UK, it doesn't very often.
Oh yes, because that's what Daz Moore was on about, because he thought I met him at Warmer World and I just saw the message. His son thought I was a spaceman because I had all the leathers on, I had the helmet. So he thought, spaceman. Yeah, I forgot about that. Cool.
So I'm going to ask, there's one question in the back of my mind I've wanted to ask you as soon as I saw you doing it in one of the painting phase videos. And there's another thing I need to sort of have a word about, but the question.
Okay, have a word about.
Yeah.
Casey, I've been waiting for you to come on.
It's the southern accent. It just makes everything sound more aggressive.
Get out my pub.
So, masking tape as robes, how did you come across that?
Through laziness.
Fair enough.
Mostly. I'd run out of green stuff and I was doing a bunch of ogres, and I wanted to do them as man eaters. It was something, because I sat next to Wade Price for a long time. We had this idea and this notion. It was like, oh, it'd be really cool if you have, saw man eaters, but in Age of Sigmar, because so used to like the man eaters of the old world, you'd see like the Cathay in sort of like, well, Nippon Ninja, you'd have like the pirate, like the Empire one. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I started doing a few, and I got some like bulls, ogre bulls, and a few random bits, and making one look like a fire slayer, making one look like what else did I do, like a lizard man and stuff. And then I was really disturbed, and I don't know why, because I've got a Daughters of Cain army. I wanted to do an ogre, but in the style of Daughters of Cain, so thigh-high boots, loincloth. You get it. So really sort of grotesque looking. I mean, it's a dude, but he's like, I'm working with these ladies. So I was like, I really wanted to just make it as creepy as possible. And I'd run out of green stuff, and I was like, oh, I want to do like thigh-high boots on this guy. But he's not going to have thigh-high boots. He's going to have his feet sticking out because they're going to be split. And I was like looking around. I was like, well, I've used like sort of cartridge paper before to make banners, and I've used tin foil to make banners. I wonder if like masking tape would. I'll give it a go because I'll try it. So I started like making strips of masking tape, and then doing like a boot, and like trying to cover around, and then doing some straps around it. And it didn't look that bad. And once you start adding extra straps on top of a strap, it kind of bulks it up a bit. And I was like, oh, I see what this looks like painted, because I know once you spray, and you're like, if you wanted to coat thin down PVA over it, it will harden it up and stuff. I was like, I'm being lazy. I won't bother with that yet. I'll see how it goes. I'll just spray it. And I sprayed it, and I was like, ooh, that's hardened quite well, and that looks like material, and it seems to have it's not come off. A few times I might need to add a little bit of dollops of glue and stuff. And then after that, I just started playing around with it, trying to do other things like doing cloaks and doing like robes or like sashes, and like making banners out of it. Currently, Monday, we're going to start doing a kill team video, and I want to do a load of blood axe orcs. There's a piece of art that's from Here We Go, and it's got like a small group of blood axes. There's like a couple of orcs, and there's an ogrin and a human that advises, and I just want to make that as a kill team. But they've all got the back banners, and I was like, paperclip, masking tape, let's give it a go, and it works fine. So as of yet, I've not found anything that masking tape can't do. So it does. Sometimes it is trial and error, because when I did like the Tanith cloaks, some of them came out really well, others were a bit naff. And when I was doing the Talon Desert Raider, my test model was rubbish, but the one I ended up doing for the video, because I did loads of thin strips, as I was going around, I'd twist the masking tape and move it around, so I did a bit of bulk, and it looked like wrappings and stuff like that for the headdress. And then just in places, I just dropped a bit of super glue to keep things in place, and it looked, I mean, not the best thing. I'm sure there's better sculptors out there with like green stuff, but from an easy access, easy achievable, you don't need like green stuff and skills. You just need a bit of time and patience and some sticky tape. It will do the job.
Being brutally honest about my own ability and skills, they're not the best. So stuff like that, I think, not just on the level of ease, but also I think cheapness is amazing, because I don't want to be going out there spending I don't know what on green stuff and just make it just looks like I've pooed on top of a mini. Something like cheap, easy masking tape. Those little things for me as a hobbyist like really are up my alley. So when I saw you doing that, I thought, that's brilliant, but how did that ever come to mind? Because for me, it's like I wouldn't have ever in a million years thought of it.
To be honest, like I say, necessity is the mother of all invention, isn't it? So and I'd not got any green stuff, and it was the nearest thing. I thought I'd give it a go. Sometimes in your mind's eye you try something, but one of the benefits of it that I didn't realize was, like with green stuff, if you hash it up, it's a lot of recovery to try and carve all that away and stuff, whereas masking tape, you just rip it off and you do it again, and then eventually you're happy with it, and you think, I'll just put a little bit of super glue here just to hold it in place. And then once you sprayed it, even on all the videos where I've used it, I get so many comments going, but how do you get rid of the tackiness? I'm like, in the video I mentioned that once you spray it, it removes the tackiness. But how does it get rid of it? Are you sure? Because it'll be gummy. I'm like, I've been doing this for ages. Why are you asking me all these questions? It'll be fine. I literally explain it in the video. But I just think people aren't convinced. They're just like, no, it's going to be gummy. It's going to be weird. I'm like, no, trust me.
Lying to us. You're using that trickery of camera.
You've got shares in the masking tape company. That's what it is. You want us to go out and spend all our money on it.
You're shilling for masking tape.
Yeah, I used to get told off a bit at workshop because I say told off a bit. Some people were like, can you keep pushing masking tape because you go on about it enough? I was like, we don't sell it. I've not got shares in a company. I mean, why is it a problem? But yeah.
Speaking of Games Workshop, sorry, Kate. Speaking of Games Workshop, you were at the Derby store for a while, which for a long time was my only store that was within like 30 miles.
Oh,
but I think I may have been before your time because I started working for Workshop in Manchester in '93. So, and this would be before that when going to Games Workshop then involved getting in the car, going down the A50 and parking on the old multi-story and walking up the street.
Yeah. Is that Bold Lane or Chapel Street? Because there's two there now, aren't there? There's one that's like...
it was the first one, and not massive on the street. It was the first ever one that opened it in Derby.
Yeah, that was the Chapel Street one, I think. Maybe.
Was that Chapel Street? I know there was a big multi-story at the bottom of the road, at the bottom of the road.
Yeah.
And then obviously the old Games Days and Golden Demons used to be at the Eagle Centre in Derby as well.
Of course they did, yeah.
So Derby was always somewhere I associated with Warhammer because that's where I always used to go.
I always forget they used to do the Games Days there. It's mad. Yeah. Not anymore, though.
No, too big now.
Yeah.
Too big now.
Way too big.
Sorry, Casey. Sorry,
you're all right. Sorry. You've actually sort of lent into something else I was going to ask in a minute anyway, so that's quite handy. But before I do that, the bone I had to pick. It's not just with you, I'll be honest. It's with Mr. Rhodes as well, if we ever get him on.
Yeah, he's hard.
Yeah.
He's hard to get on. He's hard to get out for a beer, trust me.
All your videos from your days in workshop and doing all your recommendations, all your painting schemes, everything, they're all, again, from a person of limited skills and ability, were amazing. But you've ruined my ability to paint anything else. Because of 3 words: too thin coats. And believe me, I'm having these words with Mr. Rhodes if that ever happens as well. Recently, we've had our hallway decorated here, and I had to repaint all the doors. But I'm going at them nice, thin coats, whereas my missus is coming along and just smearing it on like it's Tipex, and hers are better than mine. I'm not going to even lie about that. And I think you've just obliterated my ability to paint anything but little plastic toys.
Yeah,
and I just felt like I had to say that to you.
It's fair. I mean, it's weird how it became like a thing, because it's always been like just sound advice to painting. Like, you know, if you can slap on the base coat straight from the pot, it's a gamble. It might work, but chances are it's going to be streaky, it's going to be thick, it's going to be goopy. So that's why you always like apply 2 thin coats, because it's. Or I often say multiple thin coats, because sometimes it needs more. But yeah, because he used to say it in all the videos, it became like his meme, and then it became a thing, and now obviously got a paint range of it on and everything like that. So, but yeah, it's interesting because some people think it's just 2 and no more. It's like it can't be 1, and it has to be 2 because it says 2. It's like, well, yes, but it depends on the colour and it depends how much you've thinned it down and stuff. But yeah, I get that. I mean, because I'm a painter, if there's painting, you know, Liz is like, are you going to do some painting? I'm like, no, I don't. Just because I paint Toy Story doesn't mean I'm good at doing skirting boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate decorating. I like painting minis. Just the 2 aren't connected at all.
They're not interchangeable. And my missus doesn't understand that, because she would be at me like, why have you painted this so shit? You paint tiny things. Your eyes must be really good to look at something like that big. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It's not how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, just with the videos or your time with workshop, and even currently with painting phase, what is your standout favourite?
Oh yeah, tricky. I think if someone was to say pick one, I would go with the Cadian Army in 12 hours. 12 hours stroke 15 hours stroke 15 plus, because I was able to show a process, and there's a few people that have commented saying that, you know, that's too long, you could do more in that time, and that's great, you know, more the power to them and all that. If they can go faster, awesome. But what it was able to do was show like strategies of like painting stuff in a deadline, having a deadline, trying to keep to a thing, and also being honest with yourself, and then going, actually, I gave myself this time, it took longer for these reasons. And some of it was like the spray wasn't working, I had to base coat everything by hand. But then, you know, showing off like the tips and tricks of like speed. And if you've got a tournament the day after, and you want to get an army on the tabletop, because some people do that. They leave their armies till the last minute for a tournament. It's like homework. We all do it. We leave it to the night before it's handed in. Showing like what you can do in a short space of time and how you kind of go around like fixing what would be like lots of little details and stuff, you know, finding ways and strategies around that. So like, you know, for me it was like spray it, put some black on it, put some flesh on it, and then put some effort, just only effort onto the camo, because then when they're on the tabletop they stand out really nicely. And then yeah, here and there you can do something on the faces and stuff. So really in that was like the camo and the transfers were what really made the army. And then like things of like reverse highlighting the chip in on a sentinel. So I'd spray it silver, I'd wash it, I'd dry brush it, then I'd get the actual army color and then paint it in the panels, but then not go to the edge so it looks like it's chipped up. A lot of people appreciated that because that's just like something I've always done, because it's speedy and quick. So being able to get so much info into like one video and like just like little hints and tips, you know, I think that video is really useful just for anyone that just wants to learn to paint or paint faster, or just like have a goal of trying to do something, and it's okay to fail it. And then just like, because I constantly failed. I mean, as an army painter, I always hit my deadlines, whereas this I was just like really annoyed with myself. I was like, oh my god, I said 12 hours and now I'm 15, and it's 15 hours 15 minutes now. I'm really annoyed. But because you're doing it for camera, it's a bit harder, because sometimes when you just sat at your table and you're just painting, you could have like a timer going off and you can focus in. Whereas when you have to stop every 5 seconds and you have to like get a shot in and stuff, it does like break the flow a bit. So I'm gonna blame it on Pat for breaking the flow. It's Pat's fault.
Cool. But
I enjoyed the World Eaters one.
Oh
because
yeah,
it taught me how to play Wilderness.
yeah. I mean,
I was like, I've got all these berserkers, I don't know what to do. Oh, it's all right. Paint Face done a video. I'll just watch that.
I mean, they are like bare bones paint jobs, but they're there to, like, you know, from a speed point of view, and you can always add to it as time goes on. And I like doing those videos because it's okay not to have like, because this is the thing I think with a lot of YouTube channels, there's so many high end stuff, it gives a false impression of the real hobby. Because granted, if you've spent the last 10-15 years painting like high-end paint jobs and then you do some videos on it, of course you can be good, and you're not going to show on the mistakes because you want to show your ability as a high-end painter, but then that gives a false impression to everyone out there that that's what painting is. And I think that was a danger for a long time with YouTube. It was making people feel more depressed about their paint jobs because they see all these high-end painters. I was like, don't worry, I'll make them feel better by splodging paint on everything and just making mistakes every 5 seconds.
Makes me feel better. I'm not gonna lie, it makes me feel better.
Because it's true. I mean, the painting process is messy. And like when I was doing like the Stormtrooper or the Clone Trooper, it's like I spray in white, I put some black on, I get so much black on the white, but then I know I'm going to tidy that white up at a later point. It's fine. It's part of the painting process. And I think workshop, when I was there, we weren't allowed to show that because it looked untidy. And I was like, but it's part of the painting process. Yeah, but it doesn't look quite right. It looks a bit messy. I'm like, yeah, but it's meant to be messy at this point. It's fine. But yeah, it's nice to be able to show that and do it and not be worried, because I don't care what people think. I get a few comments like, you need to stop painting your off. I'm like, I'm going to carry on making these videos because it clearly triggers you.
Negative attention is still attention.
Exactly. Yeah, or the algorithm.
Exactly. Yeah, the algorithm doesn't know.
Cool. That's it from me for a little bit. So thank you very much for answering it and listening to me. Simon, do you want to go on? I'll jump out and Duncan jump back in.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump into the chat. Old guy in the brush. I think earlier he said that, hold on, I can't do 3 things at once, my man. I accept that invite. Right, okay. Sorry.
It's all right.
I get extremely stressed when I'm running a stream because I can't do everything at the same time. So old guy in the brush, he did say earlier that he's a big fan of your work. He's just said, that's right, I've met a lot of people that don't paint their stuff because they're discouraged because their stuff would not look like the stuff on social media, which is a really, really, really good point.
Yeah.
You know, you do see, I mean, I've watched Duncan Rhodes videos before, and it's a bit like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And the same with Darren Latham on his Instagram. He'll put something like, oh, I can't do that. So, yeah. And if anyone asks me, anyone DMs me about anything, I always say, look, if you can see improvement in yourself from last year to this year, concentrate on that. Don't look at what everybody else is doing, because I've got average in my title for a reason. But as long as I'm happy with the paint job and I'm happy enough to put it on Instagram, then that's great.
That's it. I mean, you just being happy with your last paint, being better than the last paint job. And sometimes that's not always quality, that's speed. That's like a little detail, like, I've not done eyeballs, but I've done a little black slit where his eye would be. I'm really proud of that. It looks neat and tidy. There's loads of little things like that. So
Monsters and orcs are the only things I'll paint eyes on. Humans.
yes.
No.
I mean, I'm just lucky because I got to do it for a job. Certainly in retail, your job was to sell miniatures, but then you did do painting for the store, and you were sat when it was quiet doing painting. But then when I moved to the army painting team, I was sat down for like 8.5 hours a day for like 10 years painting toy soldiers. You're going to get better. You're going to get faster. It's just natural. You're just going to improve those skills. So, it's a false impression when you see like myself and Duncan like going, hey, here's the first stage. It's finished. Like, no.
Here's how to do a skin highlight. Done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And old man the brother is trying to steal my IP because he's going, that's the reason for me to get on Instagram, just throwing some mediocre stuff. I do the mediocre stuff on Instagram. Me. I'm joking. Anyway, go on, don't carry on.
I was going to say, like, I only got back into Warhammer just before the pandemic. Like, I was reading a lot of the Horus Heresy books, and then I started like looking at getting into the models. I'm a big Death Guard fan. I've got Death Guard tattoos and Nordwind tattoos on me. But like, I used to watch your videos, like how to paint Death Guard, and it was just so. It was a really good starting off point. You'd always say, "Oh, if you make a mistake, just go back over it." And then I became a Necron fan as well. So like when we had Graham McNeil on 2 weeks ago, when he was writing when him and Dan Abnett were collaborating with the books that they were writing at the same time, when you were making up the Necron dynasty that you made up, like when you were collaborating, like how tough was that to collaborate and get the colours right and all that sort of stuff?
It wasn't very tough at all. What was really good was because I was working with Matt Ward. I know Matt Ward gets a lot of stick in the community for like making bad codexes and this and that, but it wasn't all him. It was just like a business thing. He was just the lead writer. He got the flack because he was like the name on the frontispiece page. But I always got on really well with Matt, and I always thought he was such a gent and most of the people in the studio, all the grafters in the studio are. But he trusted my ability to paint toy soldiers. I trusted his ability to write words and make cool background. So what we'd do is we're like, I want to make some new Necron dynasties. Can you come up with some colour schemes? And I was like, cool. What do you want? And he was like, I don't know. Anything at the minute. And then we'll like have a word after you've done some stuff. So I just did a load of like silver looking dudes, and I did like random colours on the shoulders. And then I did one with turquoise and then one with gold. And I was like, oh, they're quite nice. Oh, I'll put some like, little key lines on the blue one with like gold key lines on the blue one, or I might put some blue key lines around the edges of the gold one. Oh, I'll do some with orange. I'll do some with this color. Or I might pick out the breastplate on one, or I might pick out the face mask on another. And then I took him to him, and we had a chat. And then he was just like, "Oh, I really like the turquoise and gold. That's a nice look." I was like, I'm quite fond of them as well. It's got Egyptian vibes. It feels a bit Tomb Kingsy, which is kind of what they are. And I was telling him I had this idea that the more gold there is on the model, the more higher up the hierarchy they are. And he was like, oh, I like that. I'll write that in. And he was like, could you do some more tests of the blue and gold then? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went away and I had some Lich Guard, I had some Death Marks, I had just normal Necrons, some Immortals. I just did a bunch of tests. I kept going back and then would refine things. And then that was really the process, was just me painting stuff, showing him liking things, and then going, oh, I've got an idea for something that's like a hierarchical thing. Maybe, the what they called Triarch Praetorians have more gold, but the Lich Guard have more turquoise. And I was like, cool, I'll do that. So I went, sat down and painted some of those and stuff. But it was an enjoyable process. It wasn't stressful. He made it really easy because he trusted me. It was the same when we moved on to they were doing the End Times books, and he was writing a bunch of them. And we did the Kane book. I forget what it's called now. I think it's just Kane, maybe Kane. And we were just doing lots of high elf regiments, and there were like stuff that was based off art that some of the artists had just done little vignettes of, like really, really tiny little vignettes in a book, and we were just like copying those. And Neil Hodgson had done, I don't know if you ever saw the uniform and heraldry's guide. There was an Empire uniform and heraldry's guide. They did a Skaven one, and then they eventually did a High Elf one, which I never got, and I'm really annoyed. There's a couple of like regiments renowned in there, so we did those, and I was just going to Matt going, you know, on paper as an image, these look really cool, but as a model, they look a bit naff. Can I change this colour for this because it fits better? He's like, no, that makes a lot of sense, absolutely. Because a lot of the writers are just writers, they're not painters. They might do a bit of painting in the hobby, but it's not their profession, so they default to, I'm not very good at writing words, I'm not very good at making up names. I default to the guy who does that every day. So yeah, it was good to have that kind of level of trust and respect. So yeah, it was easy, it was fun. The only stress I think was, I guess, trying to, what it wasn't even a stress, I suppose, it was like, when you have a colour scheme, you've got to scale it to different things. And we knew more Necron stuff would be coming out eventually. I didn't know what they looked like. Even the sculptors didn't know what they looked like at the time, because they knew they were going to make some more stuff, but it was like early days sort of R&D. But then when you're like doing your Necron warrior that's got silver on it and gold and turquoise, how do you make the monolith look cool? What do you do there?
Yeah.
So the only stress is when you scale in those colour schemes to like everything. Like, and this is the and I guess anyone that's painting armies as well, is like the rule of thumb I do now is when we used to do colour tests in the army painting team was like, pick something that's like the rank and file, the thing you're going to see the most of, something that's big, and then something that's a tank that's really large, and then do that colour scheme across those three things, because anything in between those it'll work with. So if it works on a tank and it works on, like, I don't know, a Centurion, and then it works on a Marine, it's going to work on everything really. So yeah, that was always the thing that we did when we made new colour schemes, was a monster, really big monster for like Age of Sigma, a medium-sized monster, and then the rank and file. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, back to the drawing board.
Was there anything that, I don't want to be talking about like Games Workshop all night, but I know it's a big part of where you are and how you got to be who you are. But when you were working in Games Workshop, was there anything that you would like to have seen them make, or did you like help push them into like making like certain units or armies or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to see more plastic Imperial Guard regiments early days, and one of the things we tried to do, and it was such a shame really, and I could see why a few people got annoyed, when the Ventrilian Nobles were first put into a codex, that was Wade's suggestion as well, which was really, really good. It was like, it'll be cool to get something different because there's going to be no new plastics for Imperial Guard. And it was like, we were given like this free reign to just make up regiments. But we tried to keep it to stuff that you could buy. There was a few sort of like random pieces that got put into like some of the builds were like, dude, that kit doesn't exist anymore. Because someone, I think it was the Miasman Red Cowl, one of the guys meant to use a Vanguard Ranger for the Skitarii. Skitarii Ranger, that's it, not Vanguard. And you were meant to use that, and he ended up using one of the old Wood Elf Archer heads, which was not a kit you couldn't buy anymore. And I was like, oh no, how's that getting photography? Oh no, but the essence was there. But the thing with that was, I wanted to see from doing this like a push from miniatures to make plastic kits, because early days of the studio, the design studio, it was everyone was in the same office and you were all on a project together. So when I did like the Necron project or the Dark Elf project or the High Elf project, there was always an artist, a writer, a sculptor, some form of designer or sculptor in there, an heavy metal painter, an army painter, and then a graphic designer. And then you'd be like collaborating over the book and what that looked like, and then you know what your job is from a scenery point of view and an army point of view, and they'd know what their job is from a packaging point of view and a graphic design point of view. When everything got split apart, so you had like books and box games that did all the paper stuff, anything that was like books related, and then you had miniatures, which was a separate department that just sculpted. The communication massively broke down, so it was really hard. So you were making books hoping that miniatures might be made, and then sometimes miniatures would make miniatures and go, we've done this cool Necron Lord, cool, what we're supposed to do with that one guy that's been released, fantastic, amazing. And obviously you get like projects that have been done, like the Carrigan Overlords, like the Sky Dwarfs. That'll be a whole project that'd come up to you and stuff. You're like, cool, there's a whole new army of dwarfs in boats that fly, cool, let's get painting some stuff. But yeah, the collaboration like was a lot harder at that point. So we did these sort of like plastic new regiments for Imperial Guard, hoping that it might spur on like the guys to make some stuff. They never did. And then eventually I found out that Daz, when he did the Gene Stealer cult stuff, he made, just on his lunch breaks, over a couple of lunch breaks, he made the little upgrade sprue that had like 11 heads on it, and then some belt bits that went on the Cadian sprue. So that at the time the Cadian sprue had this little upgrade set that Daz did in his lunch times because he just wanted to make something. And I said to Daz, I was like, that only took you so long, why don't you just do like some like Mordian heads? Why don't you do some like Steel Legion heads, or just something different, so like you could just add them to Imperial Guard?
Yeah.
But it never came to fruition, you know, making all these little upgrade sets. And I guess that is down to a forecasting and a will it sell kind of
Yeah, like I would like to have seen some fallen angel models made. I think that would have been good for like a lot of the.
So we tried to push that when we did the End Times book, where we got like some of the Horus Heresy plastics and then some Dark Angel plastics and kit bashed them, because Cypher had come out for that, and we're like, make some fallen angels. So we did, and it was kit bashed, hoping that eventually they'd do a set, but they never did. So
everybody,
it's a shame, really.
Used the Dark Angel veterans. Remember the 5 veterans?
Yes, yeah.
They had the robes on, so everybody used those as fallen. They just changed the backpacks to the Chaos backpacks.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and they're great. I mean, you know, it works perfectly for that, because you've got all like that kind of monk monastery.
Yeah, they
vibe.
already got the hoods and everything. Yeah, they all like mini ciphers.
Yeah.
So when you decided to leave Games Workshop, well, I don't want to we don't want to discuss, because I think it's quite widely known that you left and all that. Like, how big a discussion was that with the wife? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's not like you just go, I'm going to leave, because you've obviously your kids and your wife to contend with as well. How tough a decision was it to discuss with her?
I mean, it was. I mean, it was only really down to the fact that when she saw some of Pat's stuff, because you know, it was quite a gamble, and it is a gamble, and even now, you know, she's seen the payoff for sure. But at the time, you know, moving from a secure job with a secure wage, even though I wasn't happy, who's always happy in their jobs? You know, not everyone is, and that's fine. But when you are creative and you thrive on making stuff and doing new things, when you're being put into a little sort of box just to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, you kind of lose what you are and what you do. And that had been going on for a year. And to be fair, the way Workshop is going and some of the behaviours that were going off in that department, I was surprised if I'd be there for another year anyway. Because of just like the mentalities of some of the people above us and some of the people I was working with. So I needed to find something else. And you know, there's other jobs across the business, but nothing I was either skilled at or want to do I would be able to do, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't make a great accountant. I wouldn't make a great sort of photographer. I could learn photography, but that's quite a learning curve. You know, it's not something that's come naturally. That's something you need to work on and get better at. And then same for sculpting, like my mate Steve, who was an army painter, he went into sculpting. He's like, oh, why don't you just learn to be a sculptor? Cool, Steve. I'll just learn to be a sculptor. That's cool. I'll just get good at sculpting. That's going to take a while.
I left a job about 7 years ago, and I remember when I went to hand in my notice, the guy that was sitting beside me, he'd actually applied for the same company that we both ended up working in, and I decided to hand my notice in. And then he handed his notice in like 20 minutes later, and then said to my supervisor, oh, me and Duncan didn't plan this. And I was like, that sounds like we fucking actually planned to do this. So, like, it must have shit Games Workshop when, like, yourselves and Duncan and Louise all handed your notice in at the same time. Like, did they, like, kind of beg you to stay? Or was it just a case of, like, one and done, like, you're done? That's it?
It was. So, like, Doug was the first to go. And I think they put that down to him being a bit of a diva and not wanting to, do what they trained him up to do. I mean, what Duncan did was him and Roger kind of like made that sort of style of video, because they worked, I think, about 6 months before any videos were released. And they worked really hard to make a style. And then I eventually joined that and then continued working with them to add to that style. We used to do lots of random videos, but then with the addition of like the new contrast paints coming through, and then this concept of like there's battle ready and parade ready and classic style and contrast style, we never sort of like wanted that. There was a whole bunch of designers and middle managers that went off into a room and decided what painting is, because this is the big problem I think sometimes with workshop, and still is now with a lot of the painters that suffer from it, is if you're an army painter and your manager is a hobbyist, he knows about painting, so he can tell you how long things take, he can tell you how to paint to this level and this level. It's like, that's not how it works. Because I'm a professional painter, my job is, this is my profession. It was really sort of frustrating that people would just not treat it as another important job, like, because they wouldn't tell heavy metal how to do the job, they wouldn't tell an artist how to do the job, they wouldn't tell a games designer how to do the job. But it was very easy to go off and design new paint ranges, or not paint ranges, but new painting styles without consulting people that do it all day every day for like the last 10 to 15 years. So that was quite frustrating, because the battle ready, as much as I agree with showing models at a certain point and then adding to them, because that's what I do with the painting phase, the way it was marketed was really weird, and Duncan didn't like it, and he didn't feel comfortable because it felt like it wasn't the right sort of way to paint. So it was just like, and you know, we talked until we were blue in the face, and just, you know, when you're told to like, be quiet little man, you don't know what you're talking about, you're like, okay.
As the saying goes, like, people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad managers.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
I mean, it must have been like the first day you left Games Workshop, it must have been a bit unsettling. Like that day, it was like, what do I do now?
Weirdly, I left workshop on the Friday, so I think my last working my last working day was a Monday, because I wanted to do it the last working day of the month. So my last working day was a Monday, and then the very next day I went to Pat's and started filming. So it felt like nothing had really changed. It was just like, I hope, because our first video would have been like a month later, because I started on the 1st of September doing some stuff with Pat, just working out camera angles and working out what we wanted to do and the style. And it wouldn't have been until like the 2nd or the 2nd of October was the first video of the painting phase would be released. So I didn't really have time to stress, if that makes sense. I'd literally just left and then went straight to making content and getting as many videos as we could under our belt before we said that I was joining this and doing that. But yeah, I mean, the great thing with like Pat is, because he's not a painter and he does paint, and I think he knows that mentality of like, he asks questions if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. He'll be like, why do you do that? And I'll be like, oh, you know what, that's a really good observation, because I do this all the time, like instinctively. I've never really took a moment to ask why I do that, and maybe I should explain why I do that. That's a really good observation. So the fact that painting isn't Pat's sort of skill set, he often asks questions that doesn't make sense, or doesn't make sense to him. So I have to explain it, and then that obviously becomes a talking point sometimes for the videos, or just I can throw that into like voiceovers and whatever, because when you're doing something for so long, sometimes you do forget. It's like learning to drive a car, right? You learn to drive a car, you drive a car, you get good at driving a car, but being an instructor, teaching people how to drive a car, it's a different skill level entirely, because you've got to explain everything, you got to know why you do certain things. So it's the same.
So my last question before I got out and let Casey back in: how's the new studio? You loving the new studio?
It's great. It's big, more space. Weirdly, it's throwing up like weird photography issues. Like there's more space, so you've got to fill it with more stuff. Whereas before it was like Pat's tiny room, which is smaller than this room. So yeah, it's good that we now have a dedicated place to paint, a dedicated place to do chats, and eventually a dedicated place to do gaming or gaming content. Because what I'd like to do is show, like, and this is the initial sort of, I guess, vibe we wanted with the channel, was I'm going to show you how to paint a kill team set over a weekend. So here's video 1, here's video 2, here's video 3 showing how to do the scenery. We're now going to show you how to play a game, and we're mates learning. So, you know, having a bit of a laugh, playing through some scenarios and stuff like that, and just fudging our way through the rules. That's how most hobbyists do it. They have the rule book. You've got your experts that have their own gaming channels that teach you how to play, like, be good at Warhammer, how to take this army to a tournament and win. We're just going to have fun playing Necromunda in whatever game system we've painted up or whatever. And chances are those that are playing the game don't see all the things that those see that are observing the game, if that makes sense. So it's like football, the players don't always see the mistakes, whereas the fans certainly do. And that was something we found with the first Necromunda game we did. I had fun. I swatted up on the rules as best as I could. We played some games, but everyone was really good. This is the thing I found really interesting, was all the comments for the Necromunda game was so positive, and just like supportive, like, oh, I noticed you got this rule wrong. This is how it actually plays out. It might sound like this when you read it, but this is how it plays out. No one was a knob. There was zero knobbery in the comments of that Necromunda game. And I was like, why can't people be like that? This was great.
Having played Necromunda on quite a few occasions, I've got to admit that every time I play it, I feel like there's a rule that I didn't know or a rule that I missed. I think that's just the nature of Necromunda. What I was going to say is the painting phase thing. I don't really watch painting tutorials on YouTube and things like that, just based on the fact that they make me feel inferior. So I wasn't aware. I mean, never watched any of the Warhammer painting stuff, so I wasn't aware of yourself. I was aware of Duncan Rose through Instagram when you blew up, obviously.
Yes.
And the first time that I heard about you was we got a group chat in Instagram, and one of the guys went, "Oh, Peter's gone to the painting phase," and I'm like, what's the painting phase? And who's preaching? But to be fair, I discovered it, and sorry, I'm just trying to do two things at once again. The rapport between the three of you and the way you do things, especially the Necromunda game, I really enjoyed watching that, because when you play Necromunda and you see people playing Necromunda, because when you see a back rep on YouTube, it's all edited and it's cut, and I'm like, yeah, I make that mistake. Yeah, I do that wrong as well. Oh, it's that relatability, I think, I subscribe to the painting phase just because people have been watching it. Obviously, they'd watched you, and then they just mentioned it in chat. And because I didn't watch anything to do with painting, I'd never really watched any of the Warhammer community stuff. I was like, who are these people? Oh, I'll go and check that out. But it's just that relatability, I think, between the three of you, which draws you in. That you feel like the three of you are really good friends. So I guess I wanted to know, did they approach you, or did you know of them when you were at workshop? How did that work out?
So didn't know Jeff. I only know him from watching like the odds chat that him and Pat would do. So to me, it was just a friend that you'd have on the show and chat to. But Pat I worked with for a few months. Well, I thought it was longer than 6 months, but he'd only been there 6 months apparently. So I thought it felt longer for sure. But he left, and at that point, myself, Suggs, were already like wanting to go, and we were looking at doing some stuff together and this, that, and the other. And he'd shown some of his early sort of designs, like logos, and like some of his videos, like how he's edited them and stuff, because he's a really good editor. He knows videography really well. So he'd left to basically go, I don't have to be dealing with this rubbish. I could just go and carry on filming weddings. I'll do that. And then he was like, oh, I quite like Warhammer still though, so I might try and make some videos. And he was chatting to me and dropping some like reels and things he was thinking of doing for YouTube on Instagram. And I was like, oh my god, this is cool. I love that title. I love that like logo. It's really good. And I started like doing some of my own filming on my phone. Did like some Clone Troopers, and I was like, oh, what do you think to this? I've just edited this up and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, that's really cool. At the time I'd done it portrait, so he was like, oh, is this for like YouTube shorts or something like that? I was like, oh no, it's for just YouTube in general. He was like, oh, you need to do it landscape. I was like, oh yeah, of course I do, dirt. So lesson learned there. But I was having lots of chats with him still, and then one day he just like, oh, have you got time like on a lunchtime just for a chinwag? I was like, yeah, sure. So he came down and sat, and he was like, what would I need to do to get you to work with me? I was like, okay. So because Liz had already seen some of his work, because I've been showing him the close-up of the paint dripping out the lid and stuff like that. It was just like really sexy footage. That's when kind of the ball started rolling, and we started working together in September when we left, and then Jeff was obviously like coming into the chats and doing the chats and stuff, and then we started like wanted to go into the gaming side of it, but the practicalities of doing that in the room, I got too excited because I said this is part 1 of 4 parts, and it's like should have been a pilot, because then everyone's like been for the last year expecting the rest.
Where's the next one?
Yeah, well, hopefully soon, because we did say, I was like, what's the chances? But we've got a lot of sponsored videos at the minute we need to work through, which is a great place to be in. But I was like, Pat, what are the chances of getting another game before Christmas? And he was like, fairly high, I think. So at least try and get one Necromunda filmed to add to the vibe of the last one. But then we do live streaming as well, so we might look at like doing other random games on live stream. But definitely like the sexy footage, the ads in the middle, especially because we've got this an American news anchor. His name's Landon. He's called Landon Paints on Instagram. He's not a news anchor anymore, but he just became a patron. We asked for like adverts, like voiceovers, because me and Pat were going to do some adverts, and he just sent some amazing ones through. And we're like, we should just get this guy doing all of them.
Yeah, those links were really funny.
Yeah, my favourite thing he did was the 3 R's of Cadia, like the 3 R's of education, which is reading, writing, and artillery. It's like, yeah, that's very imperial. Reading, writing, and artillery. Cool, good job, Landon. But yeah, so yeah, getting a chance to like play some game stuff and do more of that is great. But yeah, so didn't really know Jeff at all. I mean, you know, we spend like a couple of hours every Monday. So, you know, you get to know someone more. I know he was in the military. I don't know if you know that. He was definitely in the military.
He doesn't talk like that much, does he? At all? He doesn't really talk like it.
But yeah, I used to be an army painter, and Pat used to be a wedding photographer. So
in the army.
But yeah, so yeah, I didn't really know him particularly well, but Pat I worked with a fair bit. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to know. Well, you know, joining in with Pat was just by luck, I suppose, if anything. But yeah, it's good.
Casey?
Yeah, just obviously you're touching on Necromunda there, and it's something I've dabbled with in the past, the old classic cardboard and plastic bits and all of that. It was great fun. But I have to ask, seeing as you're churning some bits out recently, Necromunda or Mordheim, which one?
I think so. Mordheim is nostalgic, and I like it for its setting, but there's not a lot of expansion to it at the moment, other than I guess some of the old Fnatic stuff and Town Crier things that are out, and all the other warbands. I've only got the rule book now. I don't have any of the. I don't know what I did with all those extra publications, so I can only use the 6 main warbands that come in the set. I love it though. I love the setting. I love Empire. I love Old World. But with Necromunda, there's so much new plastic, so much storyline, and it's not just because when I first got into Necromunda in the 90s, I just thought it was one hive city on a planet. Whereas now it's like expanded to lots of hive cities, and you could literally have anything you want in that setting. So if you wanted cultists, there's a place for you. If you wanted a space marine in there, there's a place for you. If you wanted a sister of battle in there, there's a place for it. There's a place for every race possible. For like that being like a bounty hunter or like some kind of outcast or something like that. So the scope, I think, with Necromunda and I guess the constant updates, it is getting to the point now, I guess, that it is getting a bit sort of like, I'm not bewildered, but pounded by the amount of releases.
Yeah.
For a long time, nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's so much, I'm like, this is cool, but slow it down a little. Give us a chance to catch.
It's a running joke that we've got in our Necromunda chat, because we've got a campaign running at Boltstorm, and there's about 7 or 8 of us, and we've all got our own gangs. But then they bring stuff like the Escher jet bikes, and it's like, we can all remember a time, because we're all of a certain age, we can remember a certain time when only the Dark Angels had a jet bike. And you go, okay, one jet bike left in the Imperium, Dark Angels have got it, cool. Custodians have got more, fair enough, they've got ancient tech. And now Escher have been making them out of scrap forever, and no one ever mentioned it before. I'm like, oh, sure.
It's that, the sort of like the history change is definitely surreal. I mean, I'm gonna say Necromunda will be it, because that was the first sort of like that kind of narrative storyline that got me in, you know, that I played, where you watch the progression of characters. Then Mordheim came after that. I think if I'd say they are both good, but Necromunda will pip it. So, but the weird gear that you get nowadays is like, where was this? Where was this?
The Van Sar suits that they've got now, the jumping suits. And I think I did a meme of crying assault marines.
Although the one thing they've not done is Spirers, which is interesting. Touched on that yet. The only time that I need to finish reading it is the new book. I forget what it's called now. It's one of the Arantian, the campaigns in the doing. It's Yarnhold, what it's called, the Fall of Yarnhold or something like that. It's like the dwarf sort of hold, the dwarf squat hold that's destroyed. There's a bit where Hera Helmwar, what she's called, Helmware, the lady with the blue with the big robes and stuff like that, she gets battered and her brother's there and he's in a Malcador suit. And I was like, oh, that's one of the Spyro suits. Oh, I recognise that name. So I was like, ooh, maybe in the next book they might start doing Spyros then, potentially. It might be leading into that. I don't know. I mean, that's just me projecting and wishful thinking.
Didn't they do like, I don't know if they called them Spyros then, but they did like nobles in the first edition of Necromunda, I think. So the story behind that was occasionally they came down to the hive to basically shoot underhive for sport.
Yeah, that's the Spyros, yeah. So they get these like cool suits and gear. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Just like, these rich idiots coming down just to shoot people. It's like,
yeah, we're not fox hunting, we're people hunting.
Yeah. It's like the episode of Sharp where they're hunting the people across the bog. Love it.
Just interesting the way you mentioned the old town criers. I was in a black hole at like 2 a.m. a couple of weeks back, and I found a website that has actually got them all as PDFs.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
For the life of me, I can't remember where they are, but I'll have to dig around for them again. And just obviously with your Necromunda, I know obviously you're saying about getting your campaign back up and going and stuff. I did really enjoy that video just for the reasons you were saying. People in your comments were like, oh, by the way. And just it was more helpful. It seems like when you're watching a lot of battle report videos online, you've got everyone that just knows the rules and they're just like, right, I'm going to move this thing here and that's going to roll this dice and you're dead. And I don't get a lot of game time in. So watching three blokes sit there and actually just talk through it logically and figure it out, for me was brilliant. And I'd really like to see just you carry on with it. I know, like you're saying, when you can, but just more of it, I'd say.
Yeah,
it was really nice to see.
Well, in my head, the first 4 games of Necromunda is season 1, so there's gonna be a season 2. So that's, I've already labelled it as season 1. So come on, Pat, we're gonna do more. But I want to do some Warcry stuff. I've recently got into that Silver Bayonet, which is, if you don't like Napoleonics, it's got a horror vibe. If you don't like horror, it's got a Napoleonic vibe. And if you don't like any of those things, you'll probably enjoy it because it's like, just a bunch of guys fighting against weird monsters, and we're just going to have and it's so good because it's so easy to get into as a rule system because you only need 8 figures, and you can just order a sprue off the internet of like 1 sprue of Periplastics which has 10 figures on it, and then just use that as your warband if you wanted to. But yeah, it's so model agnostic, you can do what you want with it. And even though it's pitched at Napoleonics, you could literally pick any sort of black powder period. And you could even argue that maybe you could go into First World War, maybe Second World War, and then just go, instead of using a musket, I'm just going to use a Lee Enfield because it's a ranged weapon that hits and shoots. So yeah, absolutely scope for doing some Napoleonic horror at some point as well. Teach those guys how to play that. But yeah, loads of things. And I've just seen someone, Colin Painting Adventure, mentioned something about Gaunt's Ghost there. I did write up a whole campaign, like 4-part campaign for Wommer TV, which was going to be a Gaunt's Ghosts sort of game, because during lockdown I'd started doing games on my webcams in like cardboard boxes, and it was like over the shoulder, 3rd person sort of view, and then the guys would call in and then they'd describe what they wanted to do and I'd move the figures, and it felt like a choose your own adventure thing. And I'd written one up for Gaunt's Ghosts, and there's a Guns of Tanith, the book is, and there's a bit where they drop into these what can only be called Cloud City. So there's a bunch of cloud cities hanging around this planet. They drop into one, they go so far, and then they get attacked by loads of blood pacts. I paint up loads of the traitor guard from Blackstone Fortress and a load of the Cultists of the Abyss. Now they're all like kits you can buy. And I was going to do them as blood pact, and I was going to do like the Tanith. So I'd got the plastic Gaunt's Ghost set that had come out, and I added some extras, which is why I started doing like the mask intake cloaks on them and stuff. So I'd add some extra dudes, and all the presenters didn't know much about those novels. So I was like, ooh. So I don't know if you guys have read those books. Have you So Guns of Tanith, you've got Larkin and Bragg dobbing coup because they think he's murdered this woman. So they say that they've seen him doing this thing, and he gets like arrested, and then there's like this whole court case, and Gaunt somehow manages to swing it. So none of the guys have read this book. So I was like, what I'm going to do is during the game, when it's getting a bit hot and heavy, I'm going to get some reinforcements coming, and one of them is going to be Q, and I'm going to put him right next to Bragg, and then I'm going to kill Bragg on live, and no one can do anything about it, and then kill him off, and then just see what happens. And that mostly just to see the reaction of like the three presenters going, what is going on? I was like, hey, if you read the story, you would have known. You might have. It's your fault for not reading
Your
history.
homework.
Do your
We've
homework.
got a question from chat from Nubicron. Has Peachy ever experienced any pushback from GW on his third party content? Like, has there been any videos where they've been in touch and said we're not happy about that?
No, it's got nothing to do with them. If I'm honest, if they want to have a go, they can. But it's got literally nothing to do with them. I'm open to like feedback and stuff. So if they did come back, but most of the people I know at workshop, I have no ill will with. I left on good terms. There's a few people that don't like me, which is fine. You can't be liked by everyone that you work with, and that's fine. I've been in the company. Well, I was in the company for 20 plus years, and they were, whether I was in retail, if I was in like the army painting team, or if I was like in the photographers, there was always someone in one of those departments that didn't like you for whatever reason. And that was like one of those things you kind of accept that, no matter how hard you try, no matter how like amicable you try to be, there's always going to be someone that doesn't like you. And you just have to cope with that. So yeah, there's a few people that purposely will, like try and cause issues, but most people aren't bothered, and I've had no pushback. So because I left, this is the weird thing, I've left workshop, and most of our content is workshop based stuff, so I'm promoting their products for free. They're not paying me a wage. So if I want to sit and paint some Star Wars, they've got no say in the matter. If I want to paint some Star Wars, I'll paint some Star Wars.
It's odd, I think. The thing I find about Games Workshop is it's odd. I mean, you had obviously a few years ago when they wanted to launch Warhammer Plus, and they were going to animators on YouTube and saying, join us or we'll shut you down. I don't know the ins and outs of it. That was the rumours going around. I always find it really strange that there's people on platforms who are getting millions of views, which are directing people to your company, and you don't like it. It's like, it's the best free advertising ever.
I think weird. I think some of it's down to control and the danger of them abusing the IP, which I kind of get, because I know in the past that there's been like people that have like made weird IP off Games Workshop stuff, and they've had no control over that. And I think it was the move was to like try and like get everyone on board, have a bit more sort of like because I think that it was handled badly and it was reacted to badly. But I think the general gist of when they did that was like, we're not going to do it with everyone. It's just like weird people that are making sort of like naked Sisters of Battle, having weird intercourse with weird tentacle tyranids. We don't like that because kids watch this stuff. Where like putting up some like random fan art of like Gorn shooting a blood pact in the face, we're not going to challenge that because that's cool. But I think it was the way it was pitched made it sound really draconian, and I think it was more to protect the IP as opposed to like trounce on people's livelihoods and stuff like that. But you're right, because it was all free advertising for a lot of it. So
I think the TTS, the Emperor Text Speech Device, I think that really started the rumours rolling, snowballed it, because obviously he shut down text to speech because GW had been in contact. But I don't think GW ever actually said they were going to close him down. They just made him the offer, and I think he went, well, if they take me to court, I can't afford to fight them, I'm going to close this down. And then that perpetuated the rumour, as it were, that GW are shutting all the animators down and don't want to join them. And it was that just then snowballs, obviously, because it's the internet, and that's what happened.
I mean, I was certainly there on the inside, and it definitely, that wasn't the intent, but I guess that was how it came across. So intention versus like what was actually written were two different things. Because like I've had this many times when I've sent an email, in my head I'm jovial, like sending an email, because I forgot to put a smiley face, it comes across in Word. That person at that moment in time, because they've just had an argument with someone, read that and gone, what? And I'm like,
I don't appreciate your tone. What tone?
So sometimes words can be misinterpreted, but I definitely think with a lot of stuff, because it's a big company and there's a lot of spinning plates, that you do get people that will not handle the situation particularly well. Like Curse City was awful. If everyone was just honest and just went, we kind of screwed up. We didn't make enough. Forecasting thought not many people would buy it, but we were wrong because weirdly 40k is more popular than Age of Sigmar. Curse City was based on Age of Sigmar, and Blackstone Fortress is 40k, and that did really well. So they kind of like looked at like the numbers of like, well, Age of Sigmar does this in comparison to like 40k, so I guess we should look at similar things for this version of the Warhammer Quest. And obviously it was just like they dropped less than what they should have done, or had less than what they should have done.
It was the radio silence, I think, that followed.
Yeah.
It was the complete radio silence, and everyone's making up their own narratives then because everyone's gone silent.
Yeah.
Everything from it's the Chinese, it's the Chinese. They can't get the stuff out of China, and it's like, well, maybe they just didn't make enough. But they...
I mean, Brexit was blamed, China was blamed. The forecasters to a certain degree are at fault because they didn't make enough. But then that is a finger in the air job. When you're doing that job, you are just guessing. It is guesswork. Yeah. That's why it's called forecasting. It's not called like I'm foresighting. It's not foresighting. You're not seeing into the future. You're forecasting.
I know Eldar in your advertising department. Why not?
But you'd think they would do by now, wouldn't you? But yeah, and I think the way it was handled after, like, because we were on live, it was like you can't talk about it, you can't say anything about it, and you could tell that someone had in marketing and between somewhere else had got the wrong message. And then screwed it up because we were told it's going to be available again, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and it wasn't, and then we were just told we can't talk about it. We'd all got a set to paint up to do some content for live as well as a game at some point, and it was all just weird. And we're just like, can we not just be honest and say we screwed up and move on with our life? Can we not just do that? That would be much better. But it's like politicians, isn't it? If you like apologise.
I sometimes think though with the hobby community that a lot of the time honesty is the best policy. I think that you would have made the company more relatable if they'd have gone, really sorry, we thought we'd sell about 30,000, then we've had like 100,000 people after it and we just haven't got stock.
Yeah.
And everyone would have gone, cool, fantastic.
Because the Votan sort of like, we made them too good, and they did the James Workshop thing. That was like, when I thought that, I was not expecting that. I was like, they learn.
Nobody was expecting that, and okay, hands up, we made them really powerful because we wanted to be really popular, and everybody hates them. We didn't mean that, sorry.
I mean, weirdly, I played a game on Warhammer TV, Warhammer Plus, sorry, with Simon. So he used the Votan, I used Imperial Guard, which was the oldest codex at the time, and I didn't do too bad. I didn't do too bad in that game. I was like so close to winning it at the very end. But yeah, I remember some people putting comments again, oh my god, they got the newest codex against the oldest codex. I was like, give me some credit, I'm rubbish at tactics, and I did really well in that game.
You know what, I didn't realise you filmed that video because I didn't see that video, but in our group chat people did go, they put the Imperial Guard codex against the Votan, the most OP codex against the still an 8th edition codex, and so yeah, that backlash was real.
I mean, we played 3 games as well. We did as tests. This is like the interesting, because this is how like battle reports are done. We played 3 games before we filmed it. Game 1, Simon went first, completely annihilated my platoons and Imperial Guard in the first 2 turns. I was like, well, that won't make interesting viewing. I'll tell you what, I'll go first. Weirdly, I went first, annihilated most of his stuff, so none of the cool things could be seen, because all my like heavy weapons squads and my plasma guns and like my Sentinel with his plasma gun just annihilated all his Outriders and a whole bunch of his I forget what they call like the exosuit dudes, Herngard, or I forget what they're called now. And then in the end we were like, okay, we'll have to let Peachy go first. I think I can't remember what happened now. It's so long ago. It was over a year now. But we had to like try. We might have to re-roll some hits if they do too well, because we want to at least have one bike so we can show what the bike looks like in the battle report. And luckily, I just fluffed a couple of shots, so it didn't need refilming or rolling the dice or anything like that. So sometimes to make things look enjoyable, you have to like tweak it a bit, because if you kill all the Outriders, no one gets to see what they do. Because of the so sometimes you have to fluff it a bit, but we didn't need to, so it was great. I think the only thing we had to fluff was I wanted to get my plasma gunner killed, because I had a little guy with a base with just 2 smoking boots, and I wanted to replace him with that, and I passed my it gets hot roll, and I was like, oh, and then everyone was like, go on, re-roll. It's like, yes, can I re-roll it? So I re-rolled it, got a 1, and I just replaced him with 2 smoking boots. So it was more of a you know, a negative to me as opposed to Simon. So, but that was a good game. Enjoyed that. Had a lot of fun doing it. Got to charge a load of because I play like I'm like, you know, some British officer from World War One, just like there's loads of like armored troopers with like laser guns. Okay, chaps, fix bayonets. Give them the cold steel.
I have a whistle. Follow me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just channeling my inner First World War officer. Absolutely, mayhem. That was good.
So I think my final. I was going to do like a quick fire thing, but I've scrapped it. So what I'm going to do is a desert island disc sort of style thing. You've got one range of things to paint with one range of paints to use on your desert island. What you're painting and what you're using.
I'm painting Walker and I'm using AK paints because ever since leaving workshop, I didn't know much about other companies' paints, and Pat had a load of AK stuff, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to give these a try?" I was like, "Give them a go." And they were quite matte. They dried quite matte. I was not used to that. Not used to that because most Citadel stuff has a bit of a satin finish to it. And I've been using Citadel for like 20 plus years, longer in fact. And there was other companies as well. There's Army Painter, which I've struggled with a bit because some of them are a bit goopy, some of them were really good, some were a bit like how long do I have to shape this for? Do I have to keep doing it? Because it just took ages to mix. And then there was Pro Acryl. That white's insane. So Bold Titanium white is just like madness and magic to me. No matter how much you thin it down, it still covers really well. And I'm like, why is I've thinned it down with more water than paint and it still covers over black with solid white. I don't understand it. But yeah, AK, really good because I've yet to find a product. I know that people talk about like drop messages saying that, you know, they've had some issues in the past and stuff. It was like 5 years ago and it was bad marketing. I put it down to that. I don't think they're racists. I think they're just completely awful at marketing a product which was meant to be about dioramas. And they didn't, you know, give it a good title. So I did a lot of research on this because a few people have mentioned that, you know, because there's a lot of Spanish companies that have some like dodgy history and stuff like that. So we did a lot of research and we talked to them about it because they sent us some stuff and they were like, no, you know, we made a mistake. This is what happened. And I was like, cool, you know what? It's fine. People make mistakes. We're allowed to learn from them, as long as you don't do it again. Because I'm out. I like using their stuff because they've not yet made a product that isn't great. I had a little. I don't know if I got it around. It's called the splatter tool, and I was like, really, a splatter tool? I'm going to pay money for a splatter tool. So it's like a little box, and it's got an orange, black, green, and blue set of bristles on it, like a toothbrush, like fitted in blood splatters or mud splatters. And there was a one-to-one session and I was teaching a guy how to do starfields, and I usually just get a brush and just flick it on like a hard like surface like metal or something. And I was like, oh, you know what, I'll use this AK splatter tool. And I got it out, and on the box on the sides it has all the colours and it shows you the splatter design on the sides, like it should look like this and it should look like this depending on the different stiffnesses and lengths of these bristles. And it just came out exactly as it showed you on the box, and I was like, oh, this is really good. So if I want this effect of like splatter, like blood or mud, it will look like this. And I flicked it and it looked exactly like it. I was like, yeah, they've yet to make a product that just doesn't do its job. They always hit well. So that range of paints, and I just love Warcry at the moment. I'm kind of into that. It is a toss up between Napoleonics and Necromunda as well, but I think because all the war bands in the game itself, I just enjoy playing it. So is that allowed, a whole game system as a thing to take?
Yeah, I said range. You're fine. Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's...
We have 3 kind of questions we ask everybody on the stream. So the first question is, I hate the Beatles, right? Are you pro Beatle or anti Beatle? And if you hate the Beatles, what are your top most hated Beatles songs? Or if you love them,
I wouldn't
what's your
say I
top 5?
hate them. I don't really hate any music because my wife plays all sorts of stuff. She's like quite eclectic, and I am as well. I remember having to do Penny Lane a lot at school, and I'm sick and tired of hearing that. And Strawberry Fields Are Forever. I remember those 2. Oh, and Yellow Submarine. Yeah, because at school you have to like do sing songs, don't you, in assembly and stuff like that. So I don't think I'd necessarily hate the Beatles. I don't go out my way to listen to them. And if it's on, I will probably switch to something that's a bit more like, I don't know, Peyton Parrish is. I've recently, I don't know if you've heard of Peyton Parrish. He does a lot of Viking throat metal music. It's amazing. I think he did stuff for what's it called? Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I think he's done some stuff for that.
Yeah.
If they turn up, I'm like, nah, I'm good. And I listen to some throwback of a Viking man singing about, Odin's halls and like sailing across the choppy seas and stuff like that. I'm all right.
Yeah.
So I don't hate them, but I don't go my way to listen to them.
I'll put it down as 8. Should I turn them over? I'll put that down as 8. Our second question is, female Space Marines, are you pro-female Space Marine or anti-female Space Marine?
I'm not anti. Pro-female doesn't really bother me. I think if they're going to do it, they should make them all sort of like gender neutral, as in like they're just, you remember the engineers from Prometheus?
Yeah.
Spacemen just look like that.
Yeah.
Just like really sort of weird looking and grotesque, and they're both male and female, and no one like can distinguish them from each other because of all the drugs and all like the sort of things that's been going into them. They're not going to look human anymore. They're going to look abhuman. So in my head, I'd rather see Space Marines in power armor, but like the engineers from Prometheus. And I don't care if they're male or female. It doesn't really bother me as long as they shoot big bolt guns and kill Xenos. That's all I care about.
And the big question, and the big question that we ask everybody, and it's always a good laugh to hear people in this: Wildrum, nonce or not nonce?
Oh, totally nonce. Totally. I mean, come on.
I think Casey started calling him non-strim. Yeah. That's what he's starting to call him now.
I've not heard that term for such a long time. I remember the last time I heard it was Life on Mars, and they did like a puppet version of it. It was just like, this guy's a nonce, and they started beating up this like random puppet. And I've not heard that for years. That's definitely a terminology my dad probably knew because he was a copper before he was in the army. But yeah, of course he is. I mean, he's Slanesh. He's gonna be. It's just look at him. He's not right in the end.
Definitely, he's definitely a nonce. We always had the discussion with the female Space Marines, and I kind of changed my lore in the female Space Marines now. Because like now we've got 2 lost legions, and what I said was basically it was like 2 female Space Marine legions that fell out with each other, and then they destroyed each other, and then they don't speak to each other. But now I've changed my theory in this, where the Emperor, as you know, being a father, daughters are always loved more by the men, and the mums love the sons more for some reason. Like, that's what happens in my house anyway. So maybe the Emperor knew. Well, he obviously knew that this schism was going to happen. So he just sent his 2 daughters over and just went, you know what? Put them away somewhere so when I come back, he's got the daughters, but his side, Daddy's daughters are going to come back and help run the roost.
Yeah.
That's my
opinion. Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, if I took my 2 penny piece into that, because I know it's a big argument and people get quite energetic and passionate about the topic. I've never really been bothered about male or female Space Marines as a thing. It's just like Space Marines are cool. It's like superhuman soldiers, like shooting the living daylights out of like anything. And I always go back to like the Alien analogy, because they're both male and female in Aliens, and they're just badass like soldiers. So I don't think the sex of the soldier matters. I think it's just what they do that's the important thing. So the gender, it's like I'm a big fan of XCOM, massive fan of XCOM, right? And one of the things, like when you play a lot of games where you create a character, you pick a race, you pick a class, and then you pick a sex, and it varies what they are like in the game. Like, the man has more strength, and maybe the lady's more agile, and this, that, and the other. But then, everyone's got different body forms and different body shapes. So some men are more agile and some women are more stronger and stuff. Whereas XCOM was just like, doesn't really matter, because you're all going to get shot by aliens and die anyway. So the gender has no bearing in the game, and I'm like, I like that mentality. It doesn't matter, it's not important. What is important is what they do, and how they build up their skills and become like better soldiers in game with XCOM. So for me, like, workshop of its time when they made Space Marines, and I remember Alan Merritt putting a post about it, and people have challenged him on it, and he was there and he helped make them. Was like, I think they had a pack that was a dual pack, and it had like female space troopers, they were called, and the men had like names as well. And I don't think they were called Space Marines at the time, but they might have been.
They were called Space Adventurers, I want to say.
Space Adventurers. Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there was a pack. He was saying that they were in the pack with the male ones, but they didn't do very well. And then they ended up putting the male ones separate and the female ones separate, and the male ones just sold out more. I guess at the time, it was a lot of people just like wanted like soldiers, like space soldiers. They weren't fussed about them being male or female, but people didn't buy the female ones as much. So it was a thing of its time. Yeah, as the years have gone on, it was for a long period of time. It's like, yeah, all the Space Marines are male, and then Sister Battle are the female sort of version of that. And then as society progresses, it's that kind of thing. Like, do we change the IP? Do we kind of like make it more inclusive? And I think that's the thing, is like, I became more aware of this kind of stuff when I was in there making things more inclusive, because for a long time most of our box packaging was all white dudes, and then there was like a guy saying, I forget his name now, but he was saying that he used like football as an analogy. It was like, if you take football, interestingly, you don't find that many. There's a lot. I say that many. There's a lot, but percentage-wise, there's not that many sort of Indian and Pakistani supporters, because there isn't that many Indian Pakistani players. Whereas if you go to cricket, it's the other way around. It's mad, because they're invested in it. And it was like, because I think we're painting the Gene Stealer Cool-Tip at the time, and he was basically saying that if you add some more tones in there, then it might, make it accessible to others and think, it's okay. It shouldn't be that, and it never should be that. You should feel welcome regardless of what color things are painted on a box. It's a very, but I guess it needs that permission, if that makes sense. And I remember talking to someone after, because we'd done like the Gene Stealer Cultists, and we'd done like different skin tones, and we started moving on to like different factions and giving them different skin tones. There was a guy on Instagram, I forget his name now. His son's called Davin, but I forget his name. And it's a great name as well, Davin. I'm sure that's a place where Horus gets stabbed, isn't it? And he was like saying, yeah, ever since like seeing more like people of color on the front of boxes, I felt more welcome in the hobby. I was like, that's really interesting, because I didn't think it was a thing, because I'm just surrounded by like people that play the hobby. I don't care if you're male, female, black, white, whatever religion you pick, it doesn't matter to me. But I guess when you are of the different cultures or sexes or genders and stuff like that, it doesn't matter. It is important.
And it's kind of like going back to like World War One. Like, we all know that the British Empire had like Indians and Pakistanis, but the German Empire also had Indians and black people fighting for the Germans. But you never see that portrayed in like war films. It's always white people versus white people. You never see it with like mixed regiments. Do you know what I mean? And like, even in the regiment that I was in, like, our regiment would have been quite white only, to be honest. And then, but as people grow up and we start challenging like the more senior soldiers, well, why shouldn't we have a black guy in our regiment? Do you know what I mean? They feel as though it's like they're being challenged, or it's tradition. It's like, well, not really. Tradition is there to be broken. Like,
it's like females in the hobby. It's the same thing. It's like, there's never been any information saying you can't be in the hobby, but yet there's that sort of like vibe that you it's not for you. And again, it's like changing those perceptions and changing that, like, having more. And sometimes I know people get angry about it, because it's like, you're just forcing it and shoving it down my throat. And it's like, it can look like that, but it's not intended to look like that. It's intended to like invite and make it feel welcome, as opposed to it being rammed down your throat. Because Suggs was a hobbyist long before she joined like Warmer TV and became like working for Workshop, and she referred to herself as Savage Orc Guy.
I
followed her Instagram.
When she was Savage Orc Guy, I think it was about 12 months into following her that she put a map of Old World on. I was like, oh, she works for I didn't know they work for Games Workshop, and then she did her first selfie, and I'm like, oh, it was, but it was just one of those things. I think I always look at it like I think when I was a kid, it was your nerds. It was a group of you at school who, like, maybe a bit socially awkward, and you did that, and you were a nerd. And 13-year-old me would have loved girls to be into it, because we found it really hard to talk to girls. If we could have talked to girls about Warhammer, that would have been absolutely amazing. But then you've still got that small, that little bit of the community that is still in that mindset. It's not for girls. And that's where that comes from.
And weirdly, I think that it is a minority. It's a loud minority, because obviously the internet, you tend to see it more. It's more exposed. But most people I've ever engaged with aren't bothered or care. And I think that's the problem with the internet, is it amplifies the thing, as opposed. It's what I remember someone saying, like, the internet is like cows in a field. Cows in the field make most noise. Then when they go in for milking and go to bed at night, you hear everything else. You know, it's this the field is filled full of like all sorts of other creatures, like bees, flies, all sorts of like manner of like mammals and stuff and birds and stuff. But when those cows are gone, you get to hear it. But until that point, all you're hearing is just the nonsense. And there's like, what, 20 cows in the field. And then there's the rest.
I think as well, I think if Games Workshop maybe had a wee bit more diversity in their shops as well. Because like all the shops that I've been in, it's all been men, and we've had a couple of girls on the Inquisition, and all of them have said that when they've been in, the guy that obviously the workers got them, they think they're there for their boyfriend or their brother. No, I'm here for me. I think having like more, like a wee bit more diversity in the shop, and having girls that are in the hobby working in the shop, obviously it's hard to get people to
there was a time when there was a fair
there's quite a few female members of staff at One World. There's quite a few in the staff, and I don't see them treated any differently than the male members of staff. I mean, you'll still approach them and because obviously they've got the shirt on, and give you the advice. One of them really embarrassed a friend of mine. I bought some matte varnish, and he was standing behind me in the queue, and she was serving, and he was made a joke. He went, "Is that to make your manholes all shiny?" And she just turned around to him and looked at disgust and was like, "No." And he was just like, trying to think, I was making a joke, I didn't mean it.
I think
you know what?
a young girl
I'm going to jump in.
Sorry,
I'm going to jump in. There is a lovely lady works at Bromley store in South London. She makes my kid feel so welcome every time I go in there. I do need to shout her out, but you know what? I've forgotten her bloody name. I doubt she's watching this anyway. So if I'll take it in there and I'll be like, look, I mentioned you, but I'm really sorry I fucked up. I can't remember who you are. So there you go.
I mean, if I go back to like the studio time, it was like a good mix. It was mad, but I guess sometimes like the outside you won't get that, but then you like graphic designers. There was like 50-50, and they all got into the hobby through doing the job. I think that's sometimes how it happens. Like Pat wouldn't have been interested in Warhammer really unless he went and got the job for Warhammer Plus and then kind of was exposed to it and did it more, and then he kind of like appreciated it more again, because I think he dabbled in it at school like for a small period of time, but it wasn't something that he interested in. And then obviously getting the job, he was like, "Oh, I remember those things I used to do once for a small period of time." And I guess that's the same with a lot of people, like, you know, regardless of who you are, where you're from, it is that just being exposed to it, isn't it? And then doing it, and then workshop, the studios, just it's a good melting pot of everything and everyone. So it's just a shame that that's not always filtered out and you don't get to see it. I mean, I know they often do it, like when they do the photo shoots, they try and go, "Random female graphic designer, you need to go on the picture over there." Like, why? Because we just please.
Pretend you're enjoying this game, roll this dice and smile.
Well, most of them are hobbyists, and I guess that's just being exposed to the surroundings, because it's so, how can you not, when you're surrounded by like toy soldiers and people painting things and all that talent, and you're laying out the books or you're like writing or editing the books, you're just like, this is cool. So it's easy done.
And how are you getting used to like being in front of the camera? Because like, obviously you do the painting phase where you've got your guests, and like a lot of people that you've worked with, I love watching your videos. Not that I watch it during work. If anybody from my work is watching, I don't. Maybe. You're also on Twitch now as well. Like, so how it's a big change from not being in front of the camera to pretty much always been in the camera now.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when I first did it, I just literally moved from being a photography manager to working with Duncan. And I'd never. I think I've done like a few little bits up to that point. And I just had a newborn as well, so I like literally left the last job, had 2 weeks off with paternity, a week off with holiday, and then straight into a new job which had no skill set in whatsoever. But the skill set was painting, presenting, came with time and experience and exposure, and that's the thing. It's like the more you do something, the better you get at it. And I just wanted to throw myself into it because I wanted to help. Because in a weird way, I suppose, I just saw it as like, when I was in retail, I would go up to someone and talk to them and find out they wanted to learn how to paint figures. So then I'd take them to the paint table and show them how to paint. It was just channeling that same mindset, but I'm talking to a random inanimate object with like a little red light on the side. I'm getting nothing back, but I'm having to now rethink about how I'd say stuff. And I guess for a long period of time, I was overthinking everything I was saying. I was stressing out about every word because it's pre-recorded. Live's much different. Live, I just chill out because I could just be myself. Because if I make a mistake or stumble on words, that's just normal. People talk like that. But when it's pre-recorded, it has to be absolutely bob on and correct. So if you like stumble or you go, it's like, no, we need to retake that because it has to be like flawless. So I do find that hard. But in the painting phase, we don't care about that. It's like, if I stumble on words, I stumble on words. There's a video, I can't remember which one it is now, and I go bar blue instead of bar red. And I just like go bar blue, I mean red, oh God. And I just move on with my life because that's just how people are. People make mistakes, it's fine. But I think the exposure and keep doing it, I've got better at it. And yeah, like Pat's really good at editing and being in front of the camera. Jeff, same. I mean, he did a podcast beforehand. Sometimes it's like, you can tell like it's early morning, our first chat of the week or whatever, and there's a guest on that they both super respect, and that you can tell that probably the hearts are pounding. But to me, it's like I've done this enough with people I've really respected that you just get used to it, and the exposure. I guess that's just the exposure. Just keep doing it.
And just one last question from me, because I know like time's ticking on here, so this will probably be my last question, but probably won't. Will you be taking the painting phase on tour next year with any conventions or that?
Yeah, so we have been asked to go to LVO with Artis Opus. He's just invited us along to work with him, so I guess he's employing us for that event, and then we'll just do some stuff. I don't know what that is yet. We need to find out if that's still going on. It was mentioned, but I've needed to get a passport because mine ran out. But what we are definitely going to do is go to Adepticon. We're not going to set up any stands. We're not going to do any seminars, but we are going to go just to reconnoiter, I guess, for the first year, and then see what there is, what we need to do. Because I've never actually been to Adepticon. I meant to go a couple of times, and then lockdown happened. So I was not able to go, and same for Nova as well. But I've been to LVO a few times, so I know what to expect from LVO, or Las Vegas Open. If you don't know what LVO, I'm just chucking random letters out at people here. So yeah, the Las Vegas Open is like a big sort of tournament scene, but there are seminars there, whereas Adepticon definitely is like for painty people, and there's stalls and stands and stuff. But yeah, so that is the plan, definitely that. And then I will continue to go to UK Games Expo. I'll go to Salute. I want to go to Salute. I went to Partisan with my lads a couple of months back. There's ChillCon, GriffCon. There's so many like cons and things. So I guess, yeah, there's plenty of things to keep us entertained. But at some point, we probably will start setting up like areas to do painting or seminars or whatever, or chat shows. Just come and join and sit on the couch and have a chat. We won't call it the casting couch, though. We won't call it that.
Well, that couch that you have in the studio does look as though that's a casting couch, and it's seen better days.
That's Pat's from home. So in the short term, we've like commandeered Pat's spare sofa, and the one I sit on is my mate Steve's old bed sofa. So if we get kicked out by the missus, we can sleep in the office. But so yeah, in the short term, just cut costs down. But yeah, Pat's is a bit like, it's a bit dated, but it looks nice. I was like, yeah, it does look nice. It's all right. But yeah, it definitely doesn't look great if you're aware of those types of couches.
I can't think of anything else that Walkgate Studios is going to ask you on Tuesday. I'll try to use up all the questions that I think he's going to try and ask. We've been having a bit of banter back and forth the last few days.
Yeah.
So I know that you're going on with him on Tuesday, and I was saying don't go to his chat, and then he was referring to us as his warm-up act. So I'm saying that he was the after party, and now he's saying that we're the warm-up act. But all good banter, like it's so good to have that community.
One question you put out, I think it was you guys that put out, was like, what do I really think of Duncan?
No, I said the important question is like, can you get me Suggs' autograph, and what's it like working with Duncan Rhodes?
Yeah. He's a monster. He's an absolute monster. You can't work with the guy. I mean, he just like flips at a switch. so many times he stormed out of like filming and stuff. This is all jokes, by the way. Because I've recently done this because we've been trying to get him on the channel to chat to him, and he's really busy. And over the years of like myself, Steve, and Duncan were like sort of mates, and we'd go out for drinks and stuff. Like I'd say, Steve, next month on Friday, such and such, do you think you'll be free for a beer? And you're like, yes. Duncan, do you think you'll be free? And we're like, well, I need to get back to you. And we're like, okay, because it's like a month away. Like you plan that far ahead. You're so sort of like free living. I'm sure you're not planned anything. Next couple of days, we'll ask him again and be like, yeah, I can do it. Like, cool. And you ask him again, just to remind him, like, you still free for that thing? Yeah. And then it'll be like the week before, like, I can't do it. Like, what do you mean you can't do it? We like planned this like a month ago. So when we've been trying to get him on the channel, I'd like drop him a message saying, would you be up for coming on? He's like, I'm really busy at the moment. I've got all these events to go to. I'm like, that's cool. Open invite, let us know when you're free and you can come on. And a few people in the comments go, why is Duncan not got on? Is he like some bad blood? I'm like, he just doesn't want to come on. He just doesn't want to talk to me, just like being joke. And then he sent me a message recently. It was just like, I've been hearing some noise that apparently I've been ignoring you. I was like, no. I think the people that follow you literally take me at my word.
We don't speak. One of the comments on the chat there was that we all know that you fought him in the car park.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, we used to fight each other quite a lot near the car park because we used to do reenacting training with Dave Andrews in the little office. And as of yet, I don't know what our record is because sometimes he'd beat me, sometimes I'd beat him. None of us beat Dave because he's just too good. There were so many times. I mean, I've got my swords behind me here. I'd be like fighting Dave. I've got my swords. Sometimes I'd freak him out because I'd move from right-handed to left-handed. He doesn't know how to deal with left-handed people because most of them fight right-handed, so it'd freak him out. But he would always disarm me, and I said to him, like, how do you do that? He's like, give it another 25 years and I'll show you. I was like, I want to know how to do that. I want to know how to disarm.
Have you got him coming on? Because we've got him coming on here in December the 2nd, I think we've got him coming on.
The 3rd.
Oh.
We've got him coming on.
Not done any reenactment for a little while now, so I think we do Tewkesbury and Bosworth a lot, but I've just not, and Dave's not done it for years either now. Ever since lockdown, just having a kid, lockdown just kind of killed events and just never got back to doing it. But I want to, because I used to love just getting dressed up in like steel plate armor and just hitting people with metal. It was great. I got stabbed in the throat once with a spear, and the guy was petrified because this is what I learned about armor. At the time, you just see armor, you just think, oh, it's cool, it's a breastplate. And like, I'd got this breastplate on, and then Dave was just like, are you sure you're just going with that? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, where do you think the things are going to go? Because it's rounded. And I was like, oh no. So it's like, it's like, yeah, because it's shaped, it's designed to deflect, and every area it's going to deflect to is a fleshy part that's going to really hurt you. And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about it that way. So I had to like get armor, and I'd not got a bever at the time. And this guy had like a spear, and it hit me and it went straight into my throat. It was a blunt spear, but I had a bit of a bruise for a little while. But that guy was so petrified. He kept coming up to me like during the back going, are you all right? Are you all right? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. So I've been stabbed in the throat with a spear, but yeah, hitting people with metal objects is great. Obviously, in armor and
in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
One of our former guests, a guy called 40s Arounds, he did that medieval fighting, and he absolutely loved it. He said he didn't like being called a LARP because that's different from what he did. No, I
think there's something like base instinct involved, because when you're in the, like, you got your linen like trousers, wool trousers, linen shirt, you got your jack on, you got your armor and your helmet on, and there's like guys with banners, and there's some like drums beating, and around you is just like nothing but like bills and spears and swords, and you can just hear the clanking of the movement. I think there's something like bestial inside of everyone, because there's literally every walks of life there, and genders too, because next to me was I'd call her she was Swedish, but she was scary. She was so scary. She looked like she should be in Vikings or something like that. But she'd have like all this full plate, like late sort of War of the Roses armor on. But she was like Brienne of Tarth. That was the name. She was like Brienne of Tarth, and she was like so frightening. But no, she'd like really get into it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to fight her at all, you know, because she was on the same company as us and stuff, and I think she'd been around for doing it for years and stuff. But yeah, there were some people there that you just wouldn't want to mess with and be on opposites. The Polish are insane, in a good way. The Polish, when they turn up, their outfits are immaculate. They're obviously really good at making the equipment and stuff because they're really into that kind of thing anyway. But they are just like of another level. They're quite vicious. But there was one guy. You probably heard the story before. I don't know, but it was the first year I was there, and I was just a banner at the time, so I was just wanting to see what's going on. So I just had a banner. Minimum requirement was a helmet, and this Polish guy ends up getting like, because he's got like a sallet helmet with a visor, and he'd add it up. And what you have to do is make sure your swords are like really filed down and smooth. But as you're hitting during the day, it's going to get blurred. It's going to get lots of notches in it. And someone had hit him across the eyelid and then sliced his eyelid off, and it was just hanging on by a thread. And the paramedic had pulled him to the back, and he was like, right, if you lean forwards, your eye's going to pop out, so we need to cut you out of your chainmail. And he was like, you are not cutting me out of my chainmail. You are. I would rather lose the eye than lose this chainmail. And like the paramedic just didn't get it. It's just like, no, you don't understand. You'll lose your eyes. Like, then take the eye. Like, it's insane. But in the end, they managed to get it off him because you have to really like shuffle it up over them, and it takes ages. They managed to get it off him without him losing his eye. End up like holding it in and stuff like that. But oh god, absolutely insane. But yeah, it's all because like there was a few notches on a blunt blade, and it just like well, I guess like a hacksaw just cut across his eyelid, and
nice.
It was just hanging.
Be warming, Tom. A nice wee warming.
Yeah, he's got a little scar. Yeah, absolutely. No, good. It's good fun. Yeah, definitely. Not scary.
Any of you guys get anything to ask?
Have I got anything to ask?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Anything for us?
No, I mean, what do you guys all do? I mean, what's your hobbies of choice and stuff like that? Because you've listened to me for ages. I know nothing about you guys. So, starting from the top, what's your favourite army and game system? I guess.
Starting from me then, because I'm at the top, depending on where you're looking, the top and to the left. I play a lot of 40k. I've got a few armies. I call myself a budget stay high Paul, if you're familiar with him. He's got like 30 armies. I haven't got 30, I've got like 12. Play a bit of Necromunda. Will never play Age of Sigmar just because I was a big Royal Fantasy Battle fan, and there's just the wound will never heal.
It's a deep wound.
Yeah, very boring office job. So hobby is my way to get away from that, basically. Before that, I've done many things, as I'm sure Dunk will tell you. I was in the police force myself for about a decade. So back up in Stoke in Staffordshire.
Oh God, that must have been fun.
Oh yeah. I couldn't work the patch where I lived. For obvious reasons. And no one lived where they worked. So you were all at least 4 or 5 miles away, just in case.
When my dad was in the police force, he had to work Chesterfield and live in Chesterfield, and like my mum remember saying that they just like got like just stared at and scowled at, and I guess they must have changed that. Yeah.
So Casey.
So for me, I don't really play much. I think the most recent thing I played was a game of Space Hulk, which I still love. It's so simple. It's so easy. You can't mess it up that badly. But I dabble in a lot of things. I just like painting stuff. I've got no real sort of loyalties, but I do have a big Space Marine army. I think everyone really starts off with Space Marines, don't they? Apart from that, just typical bloke. I don't know what else to add. I've got a Palace season ticket for my sins, which I hate and love. Father of one. Like Simon and like your dad, I've done a couple of years with the police down here in London in the Met. Not there with them anymore, thankfully. But yeah, just me.
Yeah,
just me.
It's interesting.
Not much to say, unfortunately.
Between the three of you, you've all like served in some capacity, like whether the police or army. Like I've applied for the police and I was in cadets. That's as far as it ever went. And I had the chance of like joining the police or being an army painter, and I went for the safer option. I think
the safer option.
But yeah, it's really interesting. Like, you've all got like almost similar sort of like origin stories. I like it. I always like the word origin stories.
And for myself, I just paint Death Guard badly and Necrons. Like I've played like 2 games of
You
Warhammer.
can't paint Death
And
God badly. That's how they're supposed to
well,
look.
well, there is. And the thing is, we only us three only got together through painting competitions on Instagram. Like we never knew each other this time 2-3 years ago. And then we were doing like lives on Instagram, and we obviously watch a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of podcasts, not when I'm working. That's not when I do the listen to podcasts. I watch them, but we were doing a lot of lives, and I was like, I said to the two boys, I said, there's definitely a gap there where you see a lot of really good painters on Instagram who don't get enough followers, and there's a lot of people that kind of just bluff their face, like Simon, who have got like 12,000 followers for some reason. Do you know what I mean?
There's no accounting for taste. There's just no accounting for taste. What can I say?
So I said to the boys, I said, why don't we try and do this thing called the Inquisition, where we bring on people that from across the hobbyverse. We've had a DM on, we've had some cosplayers on, we've had some commission painters, and then I was just sitting like IMing people, like, and then I was like, do you know what, I'm going to try and reach out to yourself, Duncan Rhodes, and Graham McNeil, just to see if we could get like a big name on, just for shits and giggles. And like I was absolutely perplexed. Like I nearly broke my phone writing to the boys when you all agreed to come on. Like still chasing down Louise, so maybe you can have a wee word with Louise because you're chasing her down.
The secretary of late, that's for sure.
But like having like yous on like it, because we've been totally blown away with like you giving up your time like to like 3 simpletons on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we're like that on Monday mornings when we ask people to come to our chat show. We're like, 3 simpletons that just sat down eating biscuits and drinking tea, and then you get random folks.
But you're well known within the hobby. Like we're not known at all. So like for people like yourself, and like even when I'm asking people now to come on, they're like, "Oh, you sure you want me to come on? What can I bring them?" Well, the reason that we work so well as a trio is like I'm only new to the Warhammer world. Like I've followed a lot of Star Wars. I'm a big, massive Star Wars fan. I called my son Luke. Tried to call him Anakin. My wife vetoed that. Tried to call him Boba Fett. My wife vetoed that as well. I then wanted to call him Sherlock because my last name's Holmes, so I could always say to him, "No shit, Sherlock." My wife vetoed that as well. So Luke was a compromise. And then I read a really bad Star Wars book. And then I started reading the Horus Heresy books then, and then just something about the Death Guard and then the Necrons. I've got tattoos. And then I've bumped into these 2 maniacs on Instagram through a painting competition, and we just started doing this. And like to have people like yourselves and McNeil and Duncan Rhodes and that coming on, and a few other people, it's just absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
And we're just so happy like we're doing this. It's absolutely amazing. Like,
I mean, it's good to have these kind of things anyway, because it's nice sometimes just to like, because I don't have like any agendas or anything. I just like talking because that's the way I've always been. But I like being like, challenged as well. Sometimes like people are like, why did this happen? I'm like, oh, hang on, let me think, let me get me head in order and try and work it out. And if I don't know the answer, I just won't know. But I just like getting the opportunity to like talk about stuff and like hobby and thing. But also just meeting new people as well. I think that's the important bit. It's like, there'll be a time like maybe an event or something, we might end up like, bumping into each other, like, oh, it's you guys. And then you'll be like, because at the end of the day, just because I've just been lucky in my career. I've just literally just fallen into like working in retail, then fallen into working into the army painting team. And then just, I recruited the guy that is now the Two Thin Coats legend into, and now, he was like, oh, come and work with me on Warhammer TV. I was like, well, I had to apply like everybody else did. And, it was a bit of a tough and go because there were some other very talented people as well. But, it's all luck. I mean, sometimes people go, yeah, you got some skills as well. I was like, yeah, but again, the luck has come through and I've been sat down and that's how I got the skills because I was lucky. So, I'm no better than anyone else in the hobby. I've just been lucky in the hobby. I think that's the difference.
People have reached out to us and gone, how do you get Peachy on? How have you managed to get McNeil on? So we just send out emails and we just pester them until they say yes.
Yeah.
It's like my wife, I just kept pestering her until she went, aye, all right, I'll get you in a day. You know what I mean? And that was that.
That's
you know what I mean? Like, that's
I love it on Instagram. Like, sorry,
you go. On you go.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was like, I love it when I get messages on Instagram, like DMs, like going, "Oh, you're never going to read this, but you know, I like this thing. Is there a chance of like doing a quick shout out to my brother because it's his birthday and this?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" It's like, and I do it, and they're like, always seem like baffled. I'm like, honestly, I get like 1 or 2 DMs a day. I'm not like Louise or Duncan; they probably get 1,000 a day. I only get 1 or 2 because I'm a bold guy that just looks like a thumb that's been in the bath too long. Who wants to talk to me?
Encourage yourself, mate. You're going to get loads.
It is surprising for me, the messages that I've sent out. Like, people I've watched on YouTube for years, and I sent one to Joe Pointing, Chaos Lord Beard from Tabletop Tactics, and I sent one to him at like midnight, just before I went to bed. I thought, "Hi Joe, do you remember me? We met briefly at Warhammerfest. Would you like to come on?" And like, I woke up the next morning, and literally an hour later, he was like, "Yeah, sure. When can I come on?" I was like, "Really?"
Yeah, amazing. It's a
I
good
was
thing,
never expecting you to reply.
Yeah,
And the same with Liam Dempsey as well. I just messaged him and said, "Oh, we're starting this live stream. We know nothing about live streams. And they're supposed to give us some advice." And he just kept DMing me with loads of stuff. And you just like, I think you forget, because you see people on the old telly box, that you forget that they're actually real people as well, and they're quite nice people, and they're quite approachable. But I know that when I've met like people at events like Warhammerfest and the Games Expo, I've literally circled them about 50 times before I've had the nerve to go up and say hello to them.
Yeah.
And then it's always the same feeling afterwards. It's like, well, that wasn't very odd, and they were really friendly. Why was I getting myself so worked up about it? But literally, when I spoke to Discourse Minis, she was standing in front of me watching the preview show at the Warhammerfest, and I was there for like 10 minutes, and I was messaging my mates and massive fan, going, "You never get to sit in front of me. You'll never guess who's standing in front of me right now." He's like, "Just talk to her." And I'm like, "I don't know if I can." Just talk to her. So I did, and then I went, "Can I have a selfie, please? Because my mate's a really good friend. He's said I should get a selfie." She's like, "Yeah, sure."
And then you got the training order, so it was all good in the end.
Yeah. And then she never spoke to me again, and I can't watch her YouTube channels anymore. And
That's happens a lot. I get that. Yeah. I mean, you guys have probably got more balls than me, because I went to Games Day Memphis, and there was Dan Abnett there, and it took me a few moments because we're all sat having a meal at the end of like the Games Day, and he was across the table and he was talking. Well, I say across the table, literally across from me, and I was like listening to him. I was like, "That's Dan Abnett, isn't it?" I was like, "Oh, it's Dan Abnett. It's the guy I like admire. He's amazing. He writes all these books, and I love every single book he's ever written." And I'm like, play it cool. Just pretend you don't know him. Don't talk to him, and just smile and listen." And I was like, I wish I just said hello, because you know, I never did, and I chickened out, and I wish I hadn't now, and that's like a big regret, because I would have loved to have like chatted to him, because he was getting drunk. He wouldn't have cared. So yeah, which was weird in Memphis, because you weren't allowed to like, or I guess it might be the States, you weren't allowed to take your beer outside the pub, and like, because there was like obviously your high street and your pavement and stuff, sidewalk. It was like you walked outside, and then this security guy was like, "Nope, you can't come out with them." I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is not like England." Yes, may have changed that. It's been a long time since I've been out because of Duncan. It's all his fault.
Every time you are saying Duncan, I'm thinking you're actually talking to me.
No, not yet.
That's just your ego, though, Duncan. That's just your ego.
No, it must be a Duncan thing where being divas. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, when people call me Chris, I just don't know who they're talking to. It has to be like, if you're talking to me, you have to call me Peachy, because I don't know who you're talking. And that's not because it's like a diva thing or an ego thing, because people sometimes think that I'm like, literally, the only people that call me Chris is my wife and my mum, and usually that's Christopher if I'm in trouble. Most people all through my life have called me Peachy. So when I was in the office, my manager, I think he wanted to change the way he approached me. I don't know why, and he kept calling me Chris, and I just didn't know he was talking to me. I wasn't ignoring it. I just thought he was talking to one of the other Chris's in the office, because most people call me Peachy. And I was just like, and he was like, "Why do you not listen? I was talking to you." I was like, "When?" He was like, "A minute ago." It was like, I was chatting your name. I was like, "I didn't hear you." It was like, and then someone else would go, "He was saying Chris." I was like, "Oh, that's why." And I have to explain that. I thought you meant that Chris, or that Chris, or the other 4 Chris's over there. I didn't think you meant me, because most people call me Peachy. And he was just like, oh, okay. Because I guess he didn't like doing like surnames. It felt a bit too informal, maybe. I don't know, but But yeah, it's like when I'm just used to Peachy. So when I meet people, like, do I call you Chris? I was like, no, because I won't listen. Years of just primary school, secondary school, college, uni. I just don't know any other name. If someone said Chris, I was just like, can't be talking to me. Must be someone else. Too many of it. So yeah, maybe it's a dunk thing. There's not many Duncans around, so maybe.
No,
Do these guys need to split up your Smarties into different colours as well? Because if that's the yes, then it's definitely a Duncan thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like the yellow ones.
Yeah.
To get rid of the yellow ones. They can't touch each other either. You have to pick out the yellow ones.
That's,
any does Tweedledee and Tweedledum want to say anything before we burst off here? Because we could be sitting here all night just chatting.
It could be the longest stream in history. Yeah. We better. We need to put it short. I've had about 3 phone calls from my mum. I don't know what she wants, but
that was all right.
She doesn't understand what live streaming is either. She rings when we're doing a live stream, and she'll go, "Why didn't you answer the phone? I was doing a live stream. You were doing what?"
Yeah, I don't get it.
Doesn't matter.
So I think the last thing.
Thank you very much for coming on. It's been really good. Like I said, I reiterate what Dunk said. We could be chatting here all night, but some of us have got work tomorrow. So fortunately,
chats to do.
You've been off all week, like.
Yeah, but now I've got to do 80 hours because I do 80 hours on and then have a week off. So get my violin out. I've got to sign myself up for 8 hours. It's like I can't always be showbiz. I've got to go back to a day job, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then you work those 8 hours and then you're off for another week. I would rather do that. Have a half a year off. You know what I mean? That's the dream.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that I've got 8-hour week to look forward to now. And
so you need your beauty sleep. Is that what you're getting at?
I need my beauty sleep. But you can see that I need my beauty sleep. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah. Last one from me, I'd say, having watched your most recent video with the painting coach, who's a guy I massively respect, but you brought the word hench back, and I've always loved that word. And when you've dropped it, I was like, did he just say fucking hench? Go on, Peachy. I was like, the little bit, the 18-year-old in me that was like, why is man so hench? Like from the street in South London, it's like, yes, it's back.
I like that word. It's good.
So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
So if anybody doesn't know, where can they find you? Anything you want to share, like your website?
Oh, this bit I'm always awkward with. So we have a YouTube channel, Painting Phase. So check us on that. It's called The Painting Phase. It's a big flamer design with a orange flame coming out of it, so you'll be able to see it with that. And then of course I'm on Instagram, PG Tips. We also stream as well on Wednesdays and Thursdays on Twitch. Many people are telling us to go to different platforms, but we know what we're doing with Twitch, so we're fine with that. But yeah, so that is us. And we have a Patreon with obviously different tiers for different levels of stuff, whether that's just supporting or wanting one-to-one training sessions of painting and stuff like that. There's and everything in between. But yeah, most of it is we will just knock out videos we'll try to knock out videos and then just put them on YouTube for people to watch. There is a paywall with Patreon, but that's for the benefits, but most of those videos we do for that go out onto YouTube anyway. So the paywall is more for extra bits. We don't really like paywalls, but you need it.
The painting phase behind the cameras sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's when we're not wearing our normal clothes and we're just literally naked from the top down.
And just point shade all over yourselves. Or the AKA equivalent.
This couch thing, and it sounds like we're fulfilling a fantasy of yours. I'm getting.
It's Duncan's dreams. I mean, that's like makes his wife dress up as you. He didn't tell you that, though, did he?
It's getting a bit of a weird one now. I think,
I think it is time to go.
Folks, we're back on Wednesday. If you want to see more Peachy and a bit more Warp, whatever his name is,
yes,
Warp
that's
Gate
it.
Studios.
Warp Gate Studios,
he's on in
Super
Tuesday, and then
extraordinaire.
the influencer himself, and then we'll have him on the Inquisition on Wednesday, where he'll probably be gushing all about Peachy and how great he is and all that sort of stuff. So
and how his one was better.
His one was better. That'll be it.
Brilliant.
But thanks very much for joining, folks. Again,
Thanks for having me
for
on.
Christopher. This is Sunday. We'll use your Sunday name, Christopher. Thanks for coming on. And we'll see you all soon, folks.
Yeah.
Take it
Thanks a
easy.
lot.
Good night.
See you
Love
later.
you all.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.